It's Friday. It's Friday. We are live. Pontificators live, everyone. So welcome to the show. We have a dandy of a show for you. We have Eben Matthews, who is our guest star, and he's going to talk all about this cool thing that he's got going, Macroverse. But first, what Eben said, and I think this is good, and it's good for any newbies in the chat. We're going to kind of do a little bit of a secret origins, as he said. So we're going to get to know the pontificators, as it were. So we're going to start off with Todd, who is the artist of Florida, man. Mel Rooney, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, Ev? Yeah, I'm an artist, digital artist. I pencil ink and I can color, but I don't. We're getting Florida Man colored by a decent colorist who I picked and I like. So Florida Man's written by Mike Barron, and it launches June 10th. We do want it to be ongoing, so there's some hope for that. Maybe that's something we can submit to you someday.
There you go.
And that's who I am, I did 20 pages in Graveyard Shift 2. Did some work with Paul Kupperberg, and that's
the legendary career. Paul Kupperberg.
Yes.
He was my editor over at DC Comics.
He was, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how long you been doing this, Todd?
Semi-professionally for the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that. You know what? I've been doing this show. How long we been doing this, Todd? For 8 months now. I had no idea you were an artist. So that's a joke, son. That's a joke. All right. Well, let's move over to Chester, the chimney. Yeah.
He quit months ago. What happened, Chester?
He's back with a vengeance.
God, weak.
My origin, huh? Let's see. I was born
in
the northern mists of Norway. An agent of Queen Maeve escaped me out to the colonies, where I lingered in the shadows until the 21st century, until I pounced. No, that sounds more interesting than my life. No, I went to school. I studied anthropology, and yeah, I got married somewhere in there.
Nice.
Now he lives in Japan, which is probably the most interesting
I live in Japan. No, I'm a pretty normal guy. I run an English school, and I still do translations. But I love comic books. That's about it.
Yeah, there you go. And he runs a comic book art channel where they compete. Oh, whoa.
Well, Todd, I can't help it if you can't win. That's on you, brother.
What do you mean? No, I'm talking about they're calling your show, Fanspeak, a comic book news show. Sometimes it is.
No, he didn't use the word news. He said art.
I know.
You don't pay attention.
I know what he said, but that's not what he meant.
Todd.
He wasn't talking about your little tiny show drawn and quartered.
How
you need to go get some Dell's lemonade. That helps. Lemonade, the lemons, they reduce the brain size and help with the swelling.
How dare you speak for me, Todd? How dare you? This is what art meant, Chester, just in case you weren't listening.
Oh, I was listening.
Oh, I mean, Todd, news thing. But you do run, you do have a news program. You have an interview program. So Chester is a big comic book fan, and he puts his money where his mouth is and supports a lot of indie creators and up-and-coming artists on his channel. So he is doing good work. What, Evan?
Oh, I said awesome.
And then we have the heavy drinker, comic book Bob. What's up, Bob?
Is Chester done talking? All right.
Shut up, Bob.
I'm a YouTuber and comic book fan, and somehow I leached my way onto this stream through sheer perseverance and will. I also drink
payola. Don't forget payola.
Payola.
A lot of
pay and wampum.
I'll get those.
We can't tell, Bob, that you're a comic book fan by the wall behind you.
Yeah, hey.
It looks pretty much like you live in a comic shop.
Oh, if only dreams could come true.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be awesome as a kid, just rolling in the comics? That would be cool. Dream come true. All right, then we have the young lad. We have Zach Bradley. What's up, Zach Bradley?
Hey, what's up? Well, he knows me from from Jason Brubaker and my project Golma and stuff. So, and for some reason, Art decided that I would be worthy as far as being able to hang out with the upper echelon that is the show. And I think he has me around just so that he has an idiot to throw questions at that they can be like, well, why, Art? Can you please explain? So he has an excuse to explain things.
No, I'll tell you the truth.
Your worthiness is still being decided upon.
Actually, the truth, Zach, is the free artwork that you provide for the Black and White campaign.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah,
back to the payola.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it leads me to myself, 35-year comic book veteran, mostly Marvel and DC, and work as a writer, inker, penciler. I've done it all and pretty much have seen it all. So I think we're up to speed. So, Evan, you have got the spotlight, my friend.
All right. Well, I will give you a little more of my secret origin story. So I have an illustration degree. I came out of art school kind of thinking I was going to go into comics, and then made a weird segue into starting a branding and media agency, which I ran for about 18 years. So we did all kinds of interesting stuff, more on the advertising side of the creative world. And then kind of got to a point where, the business was doing pretty well. We were doing interesting projects, but I found myself at a spot of going like, I got into all of this to make stuff, and I'm really just doing stuff for other people.
Right.
And so, there's kind of a moment where I met my current business partner who was coming up in traditional film and TV at the same time. And, we realized we both kind of wanted to go to the same place, which was, having more creative control over the work we were doing and writing, directing, producing, making the stuff instead of executing someone else's thing. And so we started writing together. We were fortunate enough to option a script kind of right off the bat, which gave us a little bit of hopefully not false confidence, but got us kind of willing to sort of draw a line in the sand. And so we started a company together where we were writing, directing, producing mostly new media stuff. And at that point, doing a bunch of video game work. Some people will love this and some people will hate this, but we were one of the pioneers of the whole motion comics experiment. So we did a bunch of kind of motion comics animation, primarily for video games, for cinematics and that sort of thing. And then from there, somewhere in the middle of all of that, I met the creator of a film called The Boondock Saints. For anyone that's familiar with that,
a little film called The Boondock Saints,
called The Boondock Saints. And so as soon as I met Troy, who's the writer director of,
it happens sometimes when you get older, Bart. It's all right.
I knew immediately like this should be a comic series, like totally works, as a comic, feels like it could be a universe of stuff. And so we started working on that. I put together a Boondock Saints comic series, and that brought me kind of back into comics. Yep, Troy Duffy, Sheldon. That gave me a really interesting viewpoint into, yes, Troy Duffy. But that gave me a really interesting viewpoint into kind of traditional comics, kind of being the guy that was coming in from this outside perspective and having to figure out like who's going to be the publisher and how does distribution work and putting the creative team together. And so we did all of that, did the whole convention circuit. We actually had Sean and Norm pre-Walking Dead with us throughout that whole thing, which is super cool. So we had this kind of really great experience, but I came out the other side of that going like, we had what would arguably considered a very successful indie book. And at the same time, like this is potentially a slightly controversial statement with what's going on in the traditional direct market, but I came out of that experience going, this industry is kind of broken. Like, I love it. I'll always love it. But there's a bunch of challenges, especially for independent creators to make a dent here, to actually not only make a creative dent, but to make a living. So I started thinking about that. And with my background and, kind of all this other media stuff, somewhere around there, the first iPads were coming out, and the natural thought process was like, this has to evolve. This has to go, towards where the rest of media is going. And so that started a pretty long process of just in the background of our other work, kind of noodling around with, what's the answer to this? And so we spent a long time kind of doing experiments. A lot of our early stuff, because of our motion comics background, actually looks a lot like what Madefire ended up doing. But we kept going, no, that's not it. So, we kept working and making stuff.
Wait, back up. So what has Mayfire? Are they the what do they call those? The moving
motion books? Yeah,
motion books. Yeah,
motion comics. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the thing that we felt was, we do have a sort of affinity for motion comics, and the way that we were doing them, we felt was a little different in that we were really trying to combine traditional animation with comics art. So that, get into that if you want as a tangent, but when it came to actually the comic side of things, we felt like that stuff is cool for about 20 seconds, and then it just gets in the way of the reading experience.
I feel the same way. When I saw those, I was like, this could be a good marketing tool.
Yeah.
It's not a good, it's not a cartoon. It's not a comic book anymore. And it's not that enjoyable. But however, what you guys have done with Macroverse, I don't want to step on, but I just want to show, I want to tell everybody how amazing what you guys are doing is. But continue with your story.
I have the page up if you want to show it, Art, by the way.
Yeah, so
I have it too, but I want Eben to keep.
Nice.
Totally. So,
I love motion comics, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, I like them when they're done the way we did them. So, but that's cool.
Hey, Chester, wait till you see what Eben's doing, and you're gonna go, no, those motion comics stink out loud. Yeah.
It's a different thing. It's a different thing. So, so basically, we had this kind of bolt from the blue moment about a year and a half ago, and that's what became Macroverse, is feeling like we finally nailed two components. One is what's the right format, and then part of that was at the time kind of difficult decision to go, it's going to be the phone. 95% of the people are going to read it on their phone. As much as we wish it was tablets, it's not tablets, it's the phone. And then number two is, can we kind of look at what the rest of media is doing and apply some of those lessons to what a modern digital platform should be?
Right, because a phone, to read a comic book page on something this big is really impossible. So you still have to do you blow it up and you do all that stuff. But what you have done with Macroverse is I keep pushing in that direction, but
I'm ready. So we can jump into it now. So if you want to, I'll switch over to where you can see the app, and then I'll show it to you there. Where am I?
So basically what Eben has done is he's been kind of behind the scenes and even in developing this stuff for consumption to get to this place and time. But I don't know, it's almost cinematic what you're doing, but it's still a comic book. There's pacing, but it still reveals like a comic book. I was showing my wife this stuff the other day, Eben, and she was actually floored. When we were on Jason Brubaker's show and you were showing this to me, that was real response from me, man.
I love it. I appreciate it. So I think if you want to pop it up, you should be able to share my screen now.
Pop it up. I don't see anything. Is this it here? Okay.
It's got remind on the.
This is Chester's. Is this Chester's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. Let's see. Let me move my page and you'll see.
Matthew or Eben doesn't.
Oh, you know what? Oh, sorry. I keep forgetting. I have to actually click the button to share my screen. Sorry. Hold on a second. There's a thing for that. There we go. Share screen. And this one. And share. Okay.
So I see Chester. Okay, there it is. All right.
Yeah. So this is what the app looks like when you launch it. We just launched, talking about Jason Brubaker, we just launched his series Remind this week. But if you scroll down, you can see there's a bunch of really cool stuff on here. So, I'll give a little additional context before we jump into it. People are very familiar often with things like webtoons. We look at webtoons as sort of YouTube for comics, and what we're building, we look at as HBO for comics, and you'll see a lot of kind of the thinking around that. But as you come into a series, you get this, kind of collection of episodes. Right now, Jason's got his first 2 up here. And so we'll just dive into an episode.
Well, wait, let's back up for just a minute, Evan, because this is pretty amazing. The stuff you're going to show. It's like a Netflix subscription kind of
it is,
platform, right? Where they pay a subscription rate and then they get access to all the comic books that you have.
Yeah, so it's $5 a month. So basically, it's the cost of one print comic gives you access to everything on the platform. Most of the first episodes of everything are free to read, so you get a way of kind of sampling a bunch of stuff. And then the key component of the reading experience is, number one, it's not a PDF. It's kind of a completely reformatted, rethought way of delivering comics, but very intentionally kind of staying true to the heart of what we think comics are. And to borrow a Scott McCloud quote, it's the juxtaposition of images and ultimately the juxtaposition of images and text that make comics comics. And so, the way that we approach that is you're tapping through the story, you're not scrolling through the story. And that allows you to create kind of the feeling of movement or kind of moving through a scene, and then still kind of using panels, but you now have control over things like the placement of the panel as you're moving through the sequence. So for example, we think a lot about, it's like, these panels are actually going up the screen at the same time that the character is climbing up this tower. So you can subtly kind of reinforce what's happening in the story just by the way that you flow through a particular episode. Or as you bring characters together throughout different sequences, there are different ways of kind of thinking about that. The biggest thing is we've introduced in this format the element of time. So if you go from point A to point B in the story over the course of 3 taps versus 30 taps, that's going to have a dramatically different experience on the storytelling. So it's a very familiar kind of format for traditional comics, but we're trying to really lean into what are the things that digital does uniquely and does well, while still kind of being true to the art form.
I like somehow, that's the same shot, but you reveal something and then look at the back and forth. Like it's basically a 2-shot. Like if this was a film, you go back and forth between the 2 characters and then you reveal new dialogue as you go. So if with Chrono Mechanics, there's a lot of back and forth between the characters. So you actually cut back and forth between the characters and reveal new dialogue balloons as you do that. I think it's amazing, and I like how the way you can reveal new panels. I like how you faded that one. How you reveal new panels, and it is kind of cinematic. Yeah, but it's still very much a comic book.
Intentionally so. So we do tend to think of it as having kind of a directorial element to it as you're kind of thinking through these sequences, but it's still built,
Oh my gosh, that was brilliant with the light and then it coming in. Oh my gosh, look at this.
No, we really, really love this. And this highlights some of what you're talking about. We actually use the term 2-shot when we're, talking about bringing characters together. So here's a way of here's where
I saw this, and you reveal the cat at the table.
So we're introducing, kind of bringing you into an establishing shot, essentially, to talk in film terms. And then we can go to kind of close up on him. And now we bring them into a 2-shot together. So you're establishing the relationship between the characters. We think about, the relative size of the panels can help to reinforce kind of who's in control of the scene or who's in control of the conversation. So there's a lot of things that kind of add to the toolbox while, again, sort of still being true to what we think, fundamentally.
Oh my gosh, you scroll and then you reveal. There's a lot of thought work in this, man.
There is. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what I love about it. It's like, we're really trying to again, stay true to the medium, but deliver a whole new opportunity for other ways of thinking about the storytelling, to kind of up the ante and create a new experience.
Well, the cool thing is like comic books, there's reveals, right? So it's usually like you have you have the 2 pages, right? And then you turn the page and then there's a reveal. With this, you can have per panel reveals.
That's right.
You can pan things slowly and then you can pay them off in a very dramatic way. So you can play the comic book dramatics up to the hilt with this idea.
Absolutely.
Like every panel can have, you can play it up to the, you know what I mean? Like in a way that you can't just because of the normal viewing, the way it's done, you cannot reveal. I don't know. I'm being kind of stupid here, but you can't reveal it the same way that you can this way. Once you've seen the panel with all the dialogue, you can't unsee it. But this way, you can reveal it in a very like methodical, cinematic way, I guess.
No, it's exactly that, and it's it's the thinking that you do have the opportunity where every tap becomes the equivalent of a page turn. So we're working on a comedy series right now with a pretty well-known comedian that I can't announce quite yet, but he is, his reaction to this, and really the whole reason we're doing this project is he was like, oh, you can actually land a joke here, which is pretty hard to do in traditional comics.
Yeah, you can set it up and then you can pay it off within that same graphic, within that same panel.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of, we get kind of a real kick out of the opportunity to kind of work with all these great creators to kind of rethink, either adapting existing material or creating new material, and kind of rethink like, how do you tell this story? And many times in a way that we think is even more effective than that.
Wow, did you see that? The way you pan out and then reveal the other, like the foreground aspects of the panel?
Yeah, exactly.
This is hard to believe that this is one panel that you've done all this amazing editing with.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you guys know this artist. His name is Juan Doe. He's done a bunch of Marvel DC work as well. But he, I love, like in this case, like his use of color is so cool in that every scene has a real strong color palette. And so, thinking through like when you're transitioning from one location to another, kind of using this kind of idea where you kind of get the last moment from the previous scene into the next scene.
Yule Carter over here in the chat has a very good question. It's the same question I have, actually.
Yeah, great.
If you could.
I'm not seeing the chat, but tell me what it is. I'm happy.
Why not just have voice acting in addition then?
So same reason that we don't think motion works. Two things. So one is, I'll say we're not opposed to adding other things, and I think down the road we will probably do some experiments around that. It just fundamentally changes what it is. So as soon as you have a vocal track, the vocal is controlling the time.
Yeah, I don't think you should. I really don't think that you should add sound to it at all, because it still is an experience that you have to read. You have to become invested in it. And it's not like you can just be, where you can be removed from it. You still have to become part of it to enjoy it.
Yeah, and there is an element, and of course you're watching me tap through it, so it feels a little bit more like a lean back experience. But when you actually have it in your hands on the phone, there is an interactivity to it, and it's minimal just by the fact that you're tapping the screen, but it creates a kind of interaction layer, even a very, very minor gamification layer, to feeling like you're in control of the pace and feeling like you're in control of the story. And then the other thing I can say we've learned from working with a bunch of other digital platforms prior to starting Macroverse is that the data is the vast majority of people don't even have the volume, the sound on their phone. So, you would have to make a real conscious choice to go like, I want the audio version of this. And some people would do that, but it's a relatively small percentage.
Well, I checked out your app, and I checked out a couple of these things. It does feel intuitive as you're touching through it.
Yeah.
Now I have a tablet, so it's I think a little bit better experience than being on a phone. But I could tell that's what you made it for. Yeah. My question would be, personally, it seems like you've gone with a certain art style for all the stuff I looked at anyway. Sure. And did you feel that art style is better for what you're trying to do than say something that's more realistic or more top end? This is more kind of it's not Cal Arts, but it's a style, right? And did you feel that worked better with what you were trying to do? Was that better for storytelling or something?
Not at all. So this is a series that I write. It's called, or myself and Adam write. It's called Dead Town. Obviously a very different, almost photorealistic rendering style. We've also got some stuff that's a little more, cartoony and stylized. So we're not wedded to a particular style at all. In fact, it's one of the things that we're, actively trying to avoid. So again, if it feels that way, it may just be kind of seeing some of the latest stuff, which I can sort of see that as well. But no, not at all. And in fact, some of the new stuff that we've got coming in, is kind of all over the map as far as different types of kind of stylism.
And also, cool. Just to back up, this isn't like designed to take the place of floppy comics or anything like that. This is just another platform to enjoy the art form from. So there's some people that kind of are geared up in a like a more either or type of way, and I just think that for me personally, I think comic books needs to start thinking about a bit more multifaceted, not just with the way we distribute the product and get it into people's hands, but also with just maybe the platforms and try different formats to do this. And this is the closest I've seen digitally that works within the technology, because this is all laid out within a really awkward screen space. You know what I mean? Like a cell phone is really, that's an awkward shape, and you guys have managed to figure out how to move things with that awkward composition, and I think it's great. And the way the reveals are, it still does feel like a comic book product. So I just see this as you just a unique way to present the same type of stuff, because most of the people that you're presenting here, I know Jason Brubaker, those are all traditional comics. So those panels are taken from, his graphic novels and stuff. So this, I mean, I know I'm speaking for you, Evan, but I think you mentioned this on Jason Brubaker's show, that it's not designed to take the place of anything.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's really, well, I'll speak out of both sides of my mouth on that. So, so, I'll give you an example. We've got a series on here that we really love called Hex 11. This one is a pretty successful indie book. Like, they've done it entirely by themselves, which I always kind of applaud. They've not even distributed in comic stores, all direct to the audience, kind of book. And what we're talking to them about, and what we're talking to actually a bunch of the latest creators to come on board, is essentially doing a windowing strategy. And I may have talked about this before, where essentially things will come on Macroverse first, help to kind of build an audience, develop an audience, help to monetize the kind of the process of making these things. And then can still go out to print as sort of a second tier. So in a way, kind of thinking of it like, films would platform out to different formats and different distribution models. And then we do have some stuff which is 100% made specifically for the app. So, Glitch is only made for us. Dead Town is only made for us. We've got another series called Dame Yaga, which is only made for us. And we've got a handful more that are going to be completely exclusive, kind of only available on here. That's not to say that there would never be a print edition, but my prediction, and we'll see if I'm right or not down the road, my prediction is that at some point floppies do go away, and the beautiful collected graphic novel will never go away.
Okay.
But it becomes a little bit more of a streaming music and vinyl world, where people that want the collectible will be willing to pay for it. People that want the kind of beautiful book edition will be happy to have it, but that the mass audience for comics is, I think, going to be digital.
We have You'll asking a question. What is the price point that was mentioned?
So it's $5 a month for access to everything.
I when I was going through and checking out the app, I thought what came to my mind was Astro City.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. That would have been an awesome thing.
Yeah.
Do you really think though that digital is the future? I mean, they've been trying that for quite a while, and it's not been successful.
Well, here's my endless window. I think that the thing is twofold. One is I don't think anyone has really figured it out yet. And I think if anyone has, we have, as far as why digital. So I think, when it's a question of, I love Spider-Man, do I want to read it in a comic in my hand, or do I want to get it on Comixology and essentially have a PDF? I want the comic. And I think a lot of people feel that way. But I think when you're building something specific for a unique experience, and you can get it into the hands of millions of people as opposed to tens of thousands of people if you're lucky. That there's just no comparison. And I mean, using Webtoons as the proof of that pudding, 90 billion views on Webtoons last year.
Yeah.
So, as much as it's painful for the 14-year-old me who would have, would do anything to get to the comic store every Wednesday, the next generation is going to be on their phone. I mean, we already see it. Like, this is the thing in our pockets that we're all addicted to. But if we want comics to have a future with kids and with, kind of the next generation of consumers, they're not going to the comic store every Wednesday. And, we hope we can hook them into the characters and the franchises that we love. But then as independent creators, how do you get in front of those people? And they're on their phones or on their devices.
No, you're right about Webtoons.
I really don't see this as an either or. I don't see it as an either or. I think eventually, if floppies are going to go away, they'll go away, right? I mean, it's none of us are going to be the ones that are going to stop that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
The free market, and then just the readership will dictate that. But this is just another option at this point, another way to view, similar type of entertainment. And for the most part, I think from my point of view, it's the most original and interesting take I've seen so far as making this stuff like comic book, that type of entertainment viewable on a phone, because that's not easy to do, because that format, that layout is really, really small. And like I said, it's awkward. It's long. And I think you guys have really figured out how to take advantage of that layout and make it work. Somebody mentioned about double page spreads. Well, I think double page spreads never work in the digital world. So I think this is going to have its own payoffs. And like we were talking, it'll have payoffs within payoffs. So each panel, if you want a type of payoff, you can have it. You can control pacing in a way that you can't control in a normal comic book, but you can still base all this stuff off of a comic book. You can take these panels and you can dramatically edit them to the point of maximizing. I think it's maximizing the cinematic or the impact of what was initially intended. You know what I mean? Because you can even control dialogue. So where you would have dialogue back and forth between two characters, and then so you're revealing things as you're going along, but you can see those all at a glance. This way, the way you've been doing it, you have a balloon. And then you might crop to the second, and then you have another balloon. So you're actually controlling the payoffs. So I think fundamentally, it not that it's going to replace, because I don't want to get on that, but I think it is a cool product unto itself that has a DNA that's based in comic books. And then the other thing that we talked about, Eben and I talked about on Jason, is just it's not a PDF. So this is a secure platform, so no one ever downloads any of this stuff. Yep. So the idea of stealing it or thievery it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible, but it's hard, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's an evolution, right? I mean, because I remember the Marvel app, and they had something similar where they were going panel to panel as you flipped the page. You don't think you touched it, you flipped it. But what you've done, you've continued that evolution to where it should be with a digital inside the digital media, which I think is clever. It's cool, and in a way, I think we've all been waiting for it because we've seen what the Marvel app did, Comixology, and how they've been, trying to apply themselves to the phone, and I think you've captured it better.
Thank you,
which is cool. Yeah.
And Chester, I brought up something to Eben on Jason's thread as well.
Zach doesn't agree at all.
No, Bob. No, my wife came in. No, my wife came in and put her finger in front of my.
That was her finger. I thought that was yours.
No,
I was looking. I was like, "What the hell are you doing, man?"
It was like she just came to bother me and be a wife.
Alfred McKay has a good question there. He said, "Are you able to download on your device and access it offline, or are the fees for online access only?"
Yeah, it is all online right now. So it's it is very much a streaming service in the sense of Netflix or that sort of stuff as far as how we built the technology. There probably will come a point where we enable some of that. I mean, we are early days. We launched in October, so I mean, we're real happy with the progress since then. But there's a lot in our roadmap to build out, and downloads are definitely something that we're continuing to kind of talk about.
Yeah,
this is my thought that you have a world market on the internet, and we talked about it on Pontificators. That's interesting about online or this type of entertainment is it's a world market, and you can translate each one of these comic books into whatever the market is, and I think that's pretty interesting as well. And you can do it with relative ease versus like a printed comic book, which it can cost thousands and thousands of dollars to print all these different versions and things like that. So I think that's pretty interesting as well, that you can reach a world market and you can actually not pander, you can create a product that is designed just for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'll actually, if you share me again, I'll show you guys one other thing, which I forgot to kind of talk about. So, one of the things that's really important to us with this is kind of the independent creator and kind of making these tools for, kind of the ecosystem that I think people need to survive and thrive, as an independent creator. Am I not sharing again? Let's see. Sorry, guys.
Wait, where are we? Okay, here we go. Is this it here?
It's good to see that boomers survive across the spectrum, man.
It's not adding to the stream for some reason. Hold on.
Hey, is Joe in the back room?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Flip him with me because I get to talk to Eben every Wednesday. So if Joe has questions for him, so just flip me in.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So. Here we go. Okay, we're bringing in.
Besides, he needs to go play with his wife. That's what it's really.
Hey, Joe, what's up?
Hey, thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach. So yeah, when you're ready, tell me, and I'll show you guys a couple other quick things.
Oh, you have the spotlight right now.
Okay, cool. So here's, as we were talking about, here's the Boondock Saints series up here. But we built this kind of with this, we've got a lot more plans around this, but with this tool set in mind. So like every series has this, feed attached to it, for example. And so anything related to this for an independent creator, especially, if you've got printed copies of the book, we want you to put a link in here to do that, to go directly to it. If you've got, this live stream that you want to link people to, we want you to put a link in there to be able to go do that. So it's kind of designed with this idea of being able to create synergy around, a lot of these elements that are, connected to a particular series. So, or to cross promote. So, 12 Gauge Comics is good friends of ours, and some of their books are on here. And so here's Auntie, but we're also saying, look, great. From here, I can also go over and read another of their series.
Oh, I love the 12 Gauge guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were actually our original publisher for Boondock, which is how we knew them. But so, it's kind of designed with this idea of like this becomes the hub for all the stuff that's related to this material, to the franchise sort of becomes the heart of it. And then you can kind of build out other tools around it. So, we did a podcast episode with these guys. You're one tap away from going and listening to that podcast.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool.
Yeah. And then for the same note, if I go, I love this, I hit the share button and I can go and, put it up on Facebook or whatever. And then it's a direct link right back into that series. And so, we kind of built this little kind of tool set where, someone can now go click on this on my Facebook page. They're not even going to land on the homepage of the app. They're going to go straight to the series page for that series. So it's like we want to give people as much kind of ability and control to kind of build their own fan base, their own connection to their audience, their own ecosystem, all around the content on the app.
Well, the cool thing too is like whenever you fly and you're in the airport, right? You see everybody glued to their phone. But if you were to like bring magazines and comic books and stuff like that, you'd have a big stack of stuff that you'd be carrying around with you. But you could actually, subscribe to this and have all of these stories and things at your hand right there. You just tap on them and you can read through your whole trip. And I think that's really amazing. And then, like you said, there's also more entertainment outside of the comics. So like podcasts, YouTube shows, interviews, all kinds of different things that you can have access to. So I think that's amazing.
Become omnipotent.
Yes, we're back in my mirror world.
Oh.
Sorry about that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think more and more, again, sort of, especially thinking about independence, it's like you go to a convention, we've got to be thinking about what's the fandom side of this as well. So how do you build tools in the digital world that support the whole ecosystem, the whole business, ultimately greater levels of interaction between creators and fans, at whatever point they want there to be there. But, a lot of indies make the majority of their money by selling either art or by selling, other merchandise or, whatever that stuff is. And that's all built into this just through that sidebar. So if you've got fans that want t-shirts and you've got t-shirts available, they can, literally tap a link and go support you that way. Or if you
go right to your store. Yeah.
It's smart.
Well, here, let me share. This is actually the site here itself. Let me see here. So this is the Macroverse. So it's Macroverse Media.
Macroverse.media.
.media. I'm sorry. Yeah, and so you can get all your stuff right here. How many books do you have right now?
So I think we're up to about 23 or 4 titles that have launched on the app, and then we've got another 70 or so in our production pipeline right now that have all just.
Okay, so what kind of payola? This is always my question. Do I have to give you so I can be on this front title page?
It's just the stuff that we think kind of shows the range of material, so that we continue to kind of swap it out as new stuff comes in. And we could talk about that offline. All right.
So $100, $1,000?
Getting closer.
Oh no, that's a pricey one.
Money talks, right? Money talks. So yeah, this is a great looking site. There's you can get updates. There's news. There's all kinds of different things that you can get into. Does Macroverse actually? Would you even consider doing interviews and stuff like that for your site?
So our actually we do it mostly through our podcast. So that episode of the podcast that I showed you, it's called Myth Makers, and available everywhere. But we do interviews with most of the creators and talk about the kind of creative process, and then Adam and I also, just from our experience in all kinds of media, we like to talk about kind of as much of a deep dive into like how do you actually make this stuff as we possibly can, and kind of that's what fascinates us, and so that's what we tend to talk to people about on there.
Yeah, I think it's very, very cool, and you've only been going since October, and did you say that you have over 1,000 subscribers already?
So we've got we're not quite at 1,000 subscribers. We're over 1,000 monthly active users at this point, and
okay.
Growing 50 to 100% a month right now, which is
so. Is it $5 a month is the subscription fee? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. $4.99 a month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, we kind of context it for anyone that buys comics. It's basically the cost of one comic gets you access to everything on the app.
So potentially you said you have 70 in the pipeline. So potentially for $5 you'd have access to 70 different.
It's gonna be hundreds and thousands over time. So it's 100%.
Holy crap, man! That's a pretty good deal.
So yeah, I mean, we're bringing new stuff on, new episodes every week, new series every month, usually multiple new series every month. We're still building out more and more of our kind of production pipeline, because the one thing about our format is it does take time to especially kind of adapt stuff. So we are kind of thinking through all of that. It's not just click, 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 and it's up. So we have a process that we developed to do that, and we're kind of streamlining it, but we also really have a commitment to quality around all of it. So we put ourselves very humbly as kind of more of the HBO model, where it's not going to necessarily be especially right now necessarily the largest library, but we want you to know that everything you're going to read is going to be good. And so we try to keep a real consistent kind of curated high quality bar for everything that's coming on. and so forth and so on.
Well, my next question would be is advertising. How are you going to get the word out? Because we talk about this all the time on Pontificators, like comics and these things don't just sell themselves.
Yeah. So
you have to have some kind of budget to start advertising and helping get the word out. I mean, stuff like what we're doing right now is great, but I think that in a bigger way to get into the zeitgeist, the average Joe out there, you're going to have to kind of break down some barriers and some money.
For sure. So it's a mix of strategies. I mean, there is some marketing budget that we've put against everything that we're doing. So it is primarily social media marketing, which is where we have seen the most bang for our buck. The biggest thing, however, that we see and that we believe in is that I do think, the cross section of creators that we have a lot of different audiences, and, cumulatively it's over 10 million, actually closer to 20 million now, social media followers across the spectrum of creators that we have. And so we really are, we're also building kind of in the background, a community of creators that are, kind of working with each other and supporting each other and trying to kind of create this environment for, all of our boats can rise together. And the thing that we do see in the data is that the creators that are the most active in promoting themselves, or that we can kind of work together in promoting the material, do get the biggest spikes in readership. And I think there's, almost no substitute for that direct connection with an audience that likes what you're doing and wants to support what you're doing. And then the cool thing by having it in this platform is that someone will come in because they like your work, Art, or somebody else's work, and then they'll find something else. And then, that kind of cross-pollinates across the platform. Or, someone will come in through a different window, but they'll find your thing and they'll love that. So it's that, that's a lot of our approach, is how do we help and support the sort of organic growth, which at the end of the day is, as much marketing as you might do, the only way the platform really becomes massively successful is if enough people love it enough to tell other people about it.
But do you have any way of like kind of breaking in the mainstream, like with more of the overt advertising? Because one thing that we talk about on Pontificators all the time is like Disney and Marvel, they don't mess around. They're like, okay, we have $200,000 or $200 million that are going to go into this Thor movie, right? Sure. But then we have $100 million that's going into advertising. So they build it into their budget. And one thing that we talk about a lot on the show is that, Marvel and DC, they don't have advertising budgets. They put things in the distributor catalog and they kind of expect them to sell themselves. Yeah. And I think that is fundamentally a big problem and why we're kind of at this place. So I like people like yourself. I mean, you're thinking outside the box and you're trying to move to the future. But the thing that concerns me more, especially with these properties that don't have a built-in following, we don't have a Batman, we don't have a Spider-Man, is that when we talk about word of mouth, that sounds like the same rhetoric that we've heard with like mainstream comics, and so then you just have this kind of incestuous vacuum that just kind of that exists, and as far ranged as the people that are publishing with you is as far out as we can go. And I remember when Marvel or when DC launched New 52, and they encouraged all the people that publish with them, all the artists and stuff like that, to start advertising on their social media. Yep. And so they were relying on us to advertise their product, which is, I'm sorry, I'm going to be blunt, is bullshit. Bullshit, man. Because how dare you expect me to advertise your product? I'll advertise Black and White. I'll advertise Chrono Mechanics. But, why would you even think like, Art Thibert on his social platforms is going to advertise his Detective Comics run. I think that's kind of BS. And also on top of that, then when the interaction doesn't go their way, they decide to start editing the content. They start laying out like this is a code of conduct. This is how we want you to talk and interact with people on your social media. You know what I mean?
You have a super chat, Art.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to read this real quick, Evan.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll leave that out there. You guys can think about it. So Art, can you ask Evan what are their server costs to host this content for their subscribers? I don't know. Would you want to answer that, Evan?
I'm not going to answer that directly. So I'll say, we've got what we need as far as server capacity, and we're scaled. We're ready to scale. We are scaling. But yeah, we're good in that arena.
Okay, and thank you so much for the super chat. I do appreciate. I think Todd has, but let's leave what I said on the table.
Well, actually, I do want to address I think you opened a lot to unpack there, and I think you're right about. I would agree with you with the majority of it. I think there are two slight variations from our point of view with what we're doing. So one is, when I was more in the advertising world, I always thought like comics are missing the boat by not doing more traditional advertising. Actually, I had concepted this entire campaign, which we pitched to Paul Levitz at DC at one point, about you need to take things that are resonating with people outside of comics and find a way to connect them to comics. And so we came up with this idea years before they did it, where you would take take a Superman shirt and put like a paisley pattern on it and put it out more in a fashion forward, way for people that.
Dude, you're going straight to hell for that. Straight to hell.
Well, I agree with you, but I think.
What do you think you are, Prince and Paisley Park?
This is the early 90s, and people are like, how do you take these things and put them in places that they don't exist already?
I understand where you're going.
Or the one that we thought was really a great idea was, so many people in the larger media landscape will acknowledge comics as a fundamental building block of their creative life. Like, Steven Spielberg will acknowledge comics as part of what got him to be Steven Spielberg. And so I thought there should be a TV campaign, which is literally, I'm Steven Spielberg. I became who I am because I read Superman comics. I'm so-and-so. I was inspired to do this big thing that because of Spider-Man, and to tell those stories and to get that connection between, here's this big pop culture thing that we all know, and it came from comics.
Well, get on it, Eben.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a million different ways to slice that piece of it. I think there are two variations that I would say from where we're coming from. One is, for better or worse, I mean, we've had the opportunity to see kind of the behind the scenes from a couple of other digital platforms that are not doing comics, but are doing incredibly well. So, I think I mentioned this on Jason's show, but there's a couple of platforms that have come into the kind of emerging thing called chat fiction. So you're literally telling stories through the medium of text messaging. So it's almost like you're eavesdropping on people's chat conversations. Hooked is the most successful of those platforms. They have 50 million monthly active users, are massively profitable. They've done zero traditional advertising. It's all social media and marketing and kind of understanding how to turn those dials. So the ability to do that in a digital platform and on an app, there's no direct correlation between putting an ad on TV and how many people are downloading an app. It really is finding ways to reach them where they live. And then I think the other thing you mentioned about, DC asking you to promote New 52, you've got no reason to do that. You don't get paid more money if more people buy New 52.
Yeah, we do.
Do you?
There's some royalties,
right? But
in the form of a royalty, yeah. But it's so minuscule.
But it's not a direct correlation. You can't go, I got 20 more people to go to the comic store this week, and therefore I made $12 more. Like, you can't see that connection, and with us you can. So if you we will share our data with all of our creators. We're very intentional about that. We want to give people actionable information, so you can see, I did this on social media, it had this result, and that translates into X amount of revenue share for you inside of the app. And so
revenue share, what I thought was really cool too is that your site is merit based. So if there's 100% of the pie after expenses, then whoever's download, like let's say if you download 80% for that month, then you get 80% of that revenue. Am I correct?
Correct. So it's essentially it's a streaming model where 50% of the subscription revenue goes to kind of build, grow, support the company, and pay that marketing budget that we're talking about. And then 50% of the revenue goes into what we call our creator pool. And then that gets divided 100% based on readership. And so if you're responsible for 80% of the readers in a given month, then yes, 80% of that revenue goes to you.
So how much of that budget is going to go towards getting Steven Spielberg's endorsement?
When the time is right, I think he'll just give it to us. But
with a gun to his head,
make him an offer he can't.
You guys hold him hostage. It's like speaking to the camera.
I'm getting a mental image. Joe is sending me a psychic message. He's saying that in truth, the inspiration for Steven Spielberg came from the Brady Bunch album. Yes, that's right, the Brady Bunch album. Thank you very much, Joe.
Very good.
Very nice.
What?
You're too young, my young lad. There, you're too young. It's all right.
Well, I'll tell you, Eben, this all sounds very, very exciting. I mean, this is a new frontier. I know there are a lot of people, and I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate when I say things like this isn't really designed to destroy traditional comic books. This isn't designed to take down retail outlets. It's not designed to any of those things. I think it's just another piece of pie or another pizza pie that we can do. You're baking a whole new cake that we can all have a slice of. Because I try to not talk in absolutes or in either ors. Because I think that gets us into dangerous territory. I think all these things can exist. I think retail stores can exist, specialty comics can exist, trade paperbacks, floppies, digital, all these things. It really is just going to depend on the market. Like if it will sustain itself, then it makes sense, and that's what people are going to do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I don't think it's an either or equation at all. I think it's all additive, and it's all about expanding the reach of the art form beyond what it is right now. Because I genuinely believe that the audience for comics, and especially the audience for the kind of stuff that we're doing, are people that don't read comics. It's people that have never been to a comic store, maybe don't live next to a comic store, can't just don't have that bug in the way that we all did. But there's no reason that they shouldn't fall in love with the art form.
Well, sadly, I don't even know where I would get a comic book. There in my area, there's nothing. I would have to drive a half hour into Orange County to pick up a comic book, and is that acceptable? That's
bad.
What if you were a kid? What if you were a kid and you found out comics exist and you go, Mom, I want a comic book. And then she looks into it and is like, well, son, I got to drive, a half hour there, a half hour back. That's an hour. And then an hour for you in the store. That's 3 hours of my day. No, you're not getting a comic book.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not a good mother. Talk about the pop. You know that, Art. He's got to die if you don't go to him.
I have a statement and then a question.
Yeah, please.
One, you have the perfect opportunity to market something in a very different way, because there isn't, I haven't looked. There's a few names I recognize, and here's where I think TKO kind of went wrong with having a new format. Market the format. You have to make this look cool to the people you want to sell it to. Sure. So imagine a commercial with girls and boys, and they're showing each other their phones. Don't market who's on there, because nobody really going to care. But marketing it like, hey, this is the newest thing, and this is cool. It's even better than Facebook kind of a vibe. Boom. That's how you market something like this. Because, like I said, some of those names I recognize, and I know some of those people, but we're not talking Neil Gaiman's and the Thiberts and the, you know what I mean, and the Art Thiberts. But the other question I have is, there was
wait, Todd, before you speak, that's great insight. I like that. And also it is because it's like we've talked about on this show, that you like how do you advertise comic books? Like if it's Marvel, do they advertise their character, or do they advertise comics themselves? Well, the fundamental problem right now is people don't even know comics exist. So like you said, it almost feels like you have to advertise comic books first. Like, look how cool these are just as a comic book, and then start saying, oh, by the way, you can get these different titles, but as a secondary sell. But the main sell is, look how cool a comic book is, or look at how cool Macroverse is.
Right.
So go ahead.
You're marketing Macroverse as the next coolest thing. Where kids can come hang out. It's not a game, but it is entertaining. And so kids and girls and boys all showing each other their phones. look at this is really great kind of thing. That's kind of the vibe this needs. My question is, a few years ago, I remember there was this federally funded think tank that had sort of an Edison logo, like
Electrocomics, that was called. Yeah.
Right. Now, did any of this come out of that? Because I remember they were pushing for some kind of new digital format.
So no, this didn't come out of that, but I definitely paid attention to that when it was happening. Alan Moore being the kind of big name attached to Electrocomics.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of people have done a bunch of different experiments around this, and you know, I mean, again, this is just for us this kind of bolt from the blue moment where we kind of landed on this tap through format where we're like, oh, this is it, this is the thing, and we literally spent years getting to the point where we're like, oh, this is the thing, before we kind of pulled the trigger on going ahead with it. But
I'm assuming that's not a Japanese blue moment.
Not a Japanese moment.
Okay.
No.
Family show.
We could call it a light bulb moment instead.
It's a family show right now, Chester, but as soon as Evan leaves, it won't be a family show.
That's true.
And then Todd, to your point, I think that's a case of also not being either or. We are actually working on a more kind of platform centric marketing campaign actually right now. As far as showing off a little more of the, what is the app as opposed to what is the content. But then I do think at the same time, people do fall in love with the look of a particular series or the story of a particular series. And so it's like trying to find all those different niches. So for example, I showed that series Hex 11, like they describe that series as, Harry Potter meets Blade Runner. We've seen, and I'm just so real quick. I mean, we've seen very specifically that like targeting that directly at Harry Potter fans has been an effective way to kind of get people into the app.
Think about webtoons, though, right?
Yeah.
14 million viewers, whatever it is. You go there, and there's so much parody there that nobody. I couldn't name you the best thing over there. Or the best
you couldn't, but hundreds of thousands of girls could.
It's all hentai stuff anyway.
But it's a sort of a geared thing. You have the opportunity, like I said, because I know this guy and I know that and I know him. I know those guys, but they're not, they're not Eisner winners or this guy or that guy.
Oh, you have one Eisner winner so far, but yes, go ahead.
But you see what I mean? It's the idea of I get this kind of mentality from watching how Japan becomes sort of this fixated on this counterculture thing, and all of a sudden, boom, everyone's dressing like Sailor Moon. And you're like, how the fuck did that happen?
Language, Todd.
Sorry. But this is what we have to do here. We have to make it seem cool and not nerdy. And it's just as much fun as Facebook or this or that or whatever. And that's where we have to head. To get that kind of viewership, like manga gets and stuff like that, it really needs to be a movement and not so much niche.
Manga doesn't come into it though, because manga, America can't do what manga does.
I understand that. I understand that.
No, I think your point is very valid. I think that making the platform sexy is definitely a part of the equation. There's
so a lot of nudity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there you go. Well, God, man, I have so many questions, but I don't want to talk over. Joe, say something. Damn it.
Wait. Hold on, Joe. I got to read this super chat before it goes away. Thank you, Alfred McKay, for the $2.79. I do appreciate it. Super chats are always welcome and always a good thing. Thank you for the informative and quality content. You are very much welcome, Alfred. I do appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us when there is so much competition. Friday night is becoming the hot night, man. When we started Pontificators months ago, there was no competition. Now everybody is streaming on Friday nights. But so we appreciate you coming in and hanging out and giving us your time. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, no, I was just going to thank Alfred for sending you the 2.79 Canadian aardvarks, and I want to assure him that you'll spend them wisely. And there was a question from the chat. James Dean Anderson asks, Eben, is there a solid presence for for superhero comics on your platform? I'm mostly seeing an indie TV vibe. What works best?
Yeah, so there's not a solid presence for superhero comics on the platform, not because we don't like superhero comics, but I will say I think that there probably is a slight bias against them a little bit from us right now, in that it's really hard to do superhero comics that are going to compete with Marvel and DC, and we're not trying to be Marvel and DC. So I think our niche, if there is one, it's not a particular genre or a particular style, but we do kind of tend to look through the lens of what are other interesting stories, what are other interesting characters, what are other genres that are maybe less represented. So if anything, if you want to put a traditional comics lens on it, I would look at what we tend to respond to as a little more image type content.
You do realize that Image Comics was founded on superheroes, though, right?
Of course. The greatest moment in my life when I thought I would grow up to be Todd McFarlane.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, maybe even better. Not hard. Joe's second question has a lot to do with exactly who your market is, which you're kind of answering, I think. Sorry, Joe. Just the telepathic bond.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I was going to ask if there were titles, or even just one title that you saw, let's just say an indie title where it was a cape.
That's cool.
Title.
Mm-hmm. Definitely not opposed.
Yeah. So if they approached you guys, or you saw it and you guys liked it, then you'd be open to talking.
100%. Yeah, we're not close to anything. I think the biggest thing that we're looking for is just a particular quality bar, and then if we respond to the story and the material, then it doesn't matter what genre it's in. And so, also related to the comment that just went up, what about Western or weird tales or that kind of stuff? Like, we've actually got a series on there called The Dark Gun, which is a cool kind of Western, slightly supernatural story. So I mean, it's not at all about style or genre. It's just about, is it interesting and is it cool, and do we think it fits the overall kind of quality content mix of the stuff that we're doing.
So Eben doesn't want to be accused of cape keeping.
Yeah, but I can actually see like a book kind of like Invincible working on this platform.
100%.
Especially the way that he that he draws his stuff. I could see that working on this really well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Invincible, and that's a great example. The Boys is a great example of like, where do you take superhero comics that's not just, oh, this is my version of Spider-Man. And I think that's where I think, when you see big publishers that have raised a bunch of money and they're going to try to launch their new superhero universe, it almost never works because it's that. And so it's, I think if we're finding a different point of view, then we're all 100% into it.
So there's a follow
up with Image. That's what they did, and they were pretty successful.
Yeah, no, of course. That was a perfect storm that created that. But yes, absolutely.
There's
Wildcats for life.
There's a follow-up question from James Dean Anderson. He was saying, doesn't that keep old school comics fans out of it? By it, I'm guessing he means the platform. He says many traditional comics collectors want stories of heroes rather than just drama with powers, and Marvel sucks now.
Well, there's good stuff at Marvel.
Yeah,
there are some.
I mean, I would think about that potentially in two different ways. I think that does it keep old school comic fans out of it? I mean, maybe. I hope not. There's going to be a certain section of the traditional comics audience, and we see this in talking to people online, and I totally respect it, where like, I just want print comics, and that's not what we're doing. So if you're in that camp, like, go get print comics. More power to you. I love it. So, I mean, there's an element of the industry, and it's a great necessary part of the industry, which is going to be, more interested in kind of what the traditional format is, what the traditional stories have been. And those are there. So I don't think we need to focus on trying to do our version of that stuff.
I think what James, if I'm reading between the lines, is talking about is that he just wants to make sure that the traditional comic book fan, that have been supporting this industry for X amount of decades, isn't forgotten about, because that's kind of what's happening now, where Marvel is kind of changing their format or like agenda oriented comics and things like that. I'm not saying that all of it's like that.
Sure.
But there is kind of a pendulum swing where there's almost contempt in their way of conducting business. It's almost like, you even hear Zack Snyder say, "This isn't your father's tights and cape.
Right.
This isn't your father's Superman." That's contemptuous. And so I think what James is trying to say is that he wants to make sure that, because I think we're all in agreement, this macroverse seems very, very promising and very cool. I don't think anybody's opposed to it, but I think what James is trying to say, and I think it's a lot of our fears as well, because we see it a lot, is that the traditional comic book fan who's been supporting mainly the superhero stuff, Marvel, DC, is kind of feeling like they're getting squeezed out. You know what I mean? They're kind of feeling like they're not part of what's happening right now.
Right. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how we address that specifically, but I think, again, there's not a particular point of view, from me or from my co-founders or the people that we're working with that's trying to eliminate that in any way. So I think, again, if there was material that was in that realm that, we liked and responded to, we'd have zero issue with, trying to do something with that. And then I think in the larger industry, it is a real interesting time, because I think, I take some of what you're saying too, to also just be, I think everybody is at a point of trying to figure out what to do. Like, I think there is a sort of general, like, it's worked to a certain point and now the movies are the drivers. And so
the movies aren't bringing any of that back into
they're not. And
you're not doing what the movies are doing either.
Yeah.
Just to if I might, take a little bit from what Art said, because I actually took time and looked at all your books.
Mm-hmm.
I went and read a whole bunch of them. Right. Awesome. I love the idea. I think it's badass. Awesome. But here's the thing. That's why I asked you who are you trying to sell this to? Because I got the same vibe that I'm getting out of Marvel from the stories you're telling. And that is not for me at all, dude.
Sure.
And it's not for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bit sad, because this is cool. I love it. And I just hope that you guys will take some time and find some people who will tell some more traditional heroic journey stories instead of the kind of politic agenda that we've been getting. Because I tell you, I read a bunch of it, and it really felt like the same stuff we're getting out of Marvel, man. That's what I felt. And like I said, I'm not trying to hit on you. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's the vibe I got 100%. And that's unfortunate, I think, because I'd love to dig into it and be part of it, but I'm not going to pay for something where everything has nothing to do with what I want.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's completely fair. I mean, I can only say we're not coming at it from a point of view that's specifically trying to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
So, for better or worse, it may just be, these are things that we both responded to. And then also, quite frankly, as we're getting up and running, some of it is purely like, oh, we like this and they like this, and let's do something to get this off the ground.
So there's no gatekeeping. It's not a conscious decision to keep traditional superhero stories out. Sometimes it's also what's brought to you, because you're a publisher, so it is content that is brought to you versus necessarily something you're creating or seeking out. I think that just the genuine fear that I'm reading right now and I'm getting is that they just want to make sure that that there's content for them as well, that you're not just kind of going all in one direction, because I don't think any of us are opposed to those things either. It just what seems like it's happening is there's almost contempt for that had come before, and that there's a move in a different direction.
There is.
Yeah. And people just want to make sure that they can get the content that they like as well. Yeah.
And also with it though, Art, is there was an attempt, which I don't begrudge the attempt whatsoever, but there was an attempt by Marvel to find a new audience, but that audience didn't exist for him. Right now, maybe in this format it could, because he's right about the webtoons. That thing is huge, right? But what I'm seeing over here in the chat, which brings an idea of thing we've talked about before, there are a bunch of older comic book writers and artists who have no work whatsoever because they've been pushed out, right? And they're not doing anything. maybe this could be a format that you could get in touch with them and try to, see if we can't get some stuff from those guys like John Byrne or, Chris Claremont. He's still around. He's still doing stuff. So I mean, there's it's as far as what the chat said, but I think that the chat seems to be everyone's being real nice because they love the idea and you seem like a really nice guy. But I think I'm getting this. They're getting the same vibe out of it as I am.
Sure. Well, you don't have to.
Nobody wants to be excluded from the party. Nobody wants to feel like they're not part of something. So go ahead.
I mean, I love that idea. I Walt Simonson, for example, was one of my teachers in art school, and I mean, just an incredible guy. I'm a huge fan of his work. I mean, I think John Byrne's Next Men, that kind of thing would be really interesting to us. So, I mean, I love that idea. I think you're right. There's a bunch of kind of the old school guys that would be so much fun to see, what could they do in a whole new, style and a whole new format. So that you've just given me next week's mission, but
check this out. I actually, in a Chrono Mechanics trade, I have a Walter Simonson forward.
Yeah.
Nice.
Dude.
Yeah.
And I think the reason a lot of people bring this up too is the fact that this is a pretty exciting new platform here. There's a lot of potential here, and I think a lot of those creators that we were talking about, those guys that aren't really working in the mainstream industry right now, they might look at this as something really viable for themselves.
Yeah.
And also, those guys aren't limited to superheroes either. So they can go over there and bring something that isn't necessarily superheroes as well. So it seems like Eben's open to all these different things, not necessarily excluding one for the other. I just think that people are a little gun shy right now, Eben, and they want to make sure that they can kind of like maybe have their say right now and help you steer it into like content that they might want as well,
Sure. Well, I guess, the other thing I would say is I love, I'm truly in love with this idea of going to the old guard. I'm serious. Like, I will start making contacts next week on that, and I'll give all the credit back to you guys. But I think that the other factor in there too is I think we have up to this point talked to and looked to a lot of what's happening on the indie side of the market, and so I think for better or worse, a lot of indie creators fall, and I don't mean to disparage anybody that's making their own stuff, because my hat is off to everyone that's making their own stuff at whatever level they're making it. But I think you do see, when you roam through Artist Alley, you've got people who are doing really interesting things that are completely shying away from what Marvel and DC is doing, because there's no way they're going to sell a book that is what Marvel and DC are doing.
They can't compete. Yeah.
And you've also got people who are doing a version of what Marvel and DC is doing, and it just comes off as really derivative. And so I think, that has been our focus so far, is like find these interesting stories and styles and things that are not what you're going to get from, traditional publishers. And then I think we build on that and expand on that into, places that cover a wider and wider and wider spectrum of content and audience and all of that. So I actually, I want to genuinely say, like, I really appreciate all the feedback, because it is another it's not only another place for us to be looking, but it's also the only way this works is for it to to have this kind of dialogue with the audience that's going to be using it. So it's like you guys and we genuinely kind of look at this as our customer is actually the creators as much as it is the reader, in that, we want to support people in making the stuff that they want to make. So if there's a desire for, Walt Simonson to come and do a new thing, like, we're in it, like that would make me unbelievably happy.
So all the above, and once again, not an either or scenario. So open to it, but it's got to kind of fit and not be, I guess, for the sake of, not cliche. You don't want anything that's derivative or cliche. You want it to feel fresh, and you want it to feel, original. So it can be, like one of those type of moral tales or like superhero adventures, but, something that's a little bit unique, so that you can compete with a Marvel, DC, which are doing their thing. So instead of just, replicating what they're doing, you want to go into a different direction. And I totally respect that and think that that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I think Bob, actually, you said Invincible, and that's a great, I mean, it's such a great touch point of like, that feels like a traditional, you know, superhero book, but it's got such a unique point of view in the writing and in the execution of it that, I mean, that's kind of the exact kind of thing that we would love to find in that realm.
So Bob, get on it.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
very cool. Well, I just want to, because I want to let Eben go, but I want to let everybody get a question in before we say goodbye. So, Todd, do you have anything for Eben?
Yeah, you're muted, dude.
No, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Project forward for us. Where do you see yourself in about a year?
Where do we see ourselves in about a year? So, I mean, I think there are two things. One is, you know, I do see the platform growing kind of exponentially, and we're kind of seeing the beginnings of that, you know, curve happening now. You know, I think we'll continue to develop tools that, you know, support both the creator, you know, kind of ecosystem around the content, as well as kind of diversifying the content mix, as we've been talking about. And just, you know, growing and growing into a bigger and bigger platform to support the medium that we love.
Do you have a YouTube channel that kind of breaks down, because some of these things were print comics, and sort of show the process, so maybe people go, because people might look at it and go, geez, is that more work for me or more work for them? You know what I mean?
So it's we do have a YouTube channel. And actually, I love your guys' feedback on this. So we internally are debating all day long how much of the process to reveal at what point. So, you know, there is, I mean, I think there's a lot of value in kind of showing people how it works, especially if we want this to become a widely adapted format. People need to understand how to work in it. At the same time, like, we haven't, you know, so not to pick on Madefire, but I think one of the things that they did is they built a custom tool, and you've essentially got to learn After Effects in order to make stuff in their format. So, I mean, we very intentionally made all of this where it's traditional comics making with a couple of twists at the end. So, you know, there's not a huge learning curve for it. What we're doing right now is, once we are working with someone, then we kind of pull that curtain back. And so we really are questioning, you know, at what point do we make more of that kind of just generally public knowledge? And there's, you know, and part of that is, you know, quite honestly, a business question of like, how much do we want to open the door to competition at this point? Like, we've spent a lot of time figuring this out. So how much of it should be proprietary? How much of it should be public?
I'm strictly coming from a creator point of view.
For
as
sure.
Far as, like, you know what? I've already got 10 comics in the can. How would I, like, how much more work would this cost?
Yeah, I can answer. I mean, I can definitely answer that in broad terms. And that is, you know, it is more work. It's not a huge amount of work. So it's all using traditional tools. It's all built off kind of an Adobe tool set. So if you're familiar with, you know, making stuff in Photoshop, and then our primary thing is InDesign that we put everything together in, and we've built our own tool that lets us kind of build the stuff in InDesign and then pull it into the app, you know, off of that. So that's the biggest thing. The number one thing that people, you know, do have to keep in mind is lettering and art has to be separated. So we're doing the lettering at the software layer as opposed to at the art layer. And the big reason for that is we're setting the foundation for international translation. So by doing it digitally, we can, you know, over time kind of click a switch and launch in other countries and other languages. So we're building, a lot of what we're doing is kind of building tracks for, you know, bigger expansion down the road.
Well, also that 50% that you get, that's you guys do all that. You put those books together, editing and all that stuff. So it's not the artist that's doing it. I don't know if that was kind of Todd's question, but
it's for clarity's sake, it's a combination. So with some stuff, we with some creators, we, you know, have made a deal where we'll do all the adaptation internally, and we have done that with a lot of the early stuff. quite honestly, we're a bit at production capacity right now. So, for new stuff that's coming in, we're really working more with like, we'll help you through the first few episodes and then, continue to support the process. But we're really looking for more people to deliver finished episodes at this point. It's not a hard learning curve. It is a little learning curve. It's more of the thought process and kind of best practices of.
Don't be afraid to show that, though. I mean, I don't mean the sausage, but don't be afraid to show what you put on the table. But that way, some people will go, you know what? I want to learn so that I can do the future thing I do. Geared towards that's also a possibility. Like
that would probably be an individual thing. They would probably tell the artist that once they start working.
That's what we're doing right now. It's sort of a person by person basis. I do think over time that will become more kind of widely disseminated. And I think one of the things that we're talking about also, and again, feedback on this is welcome. Is we're talking about a bit of a sort of a minor league, major league kind of scenario where, there's a path for anyone to publish on the platform at sort of the Macroverse underground level. And then, once we can kind of see a certain threshold of an audience, that stuff gets promoted more to the major, the main, page essentially.
If you throw in mentoring with that, I think that's a great idea. That's what I think all these companies like Marvel and they should have their own webtoons where prove to me that Squirrel Globe.
Yeah, why don't they?
Yeah,
good point.
Or Safe Space or whoever. Prove to me that the concept is wanted.
Yeah,
and the creators who are doing it are viable.
Yeah,
and then we go to print.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. If you had a A and a B league, and some mentoring there, some coaching, some cheerleading.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that is something we're thinking quite a bit about is kind of what's the right mix of that stuff and wanting to kind of maintain a premium brand level in comparison to, stuff like Webtoons, which, we do kind of look at as YouTube. But I think you're right. I think there are ways to kind of validate that. It is, again, sort of seeing what other, digital platforms have done successfully is, one of the big advantages to working in this format is we get real immediate feedback and real immediate data. And so we can see like, oh, this thing works and this thing doesn't work.
Every baseball team wants the players that are young to be good enough to come up. And that's why they invest the time into them. Yeah. No, I like the idea of adding a mentorship layer to that as well.
Marvel used to have one. Marvel used to have a mentoring whole policy and everything. They called them DC Comics.
Yeah. Indeed.
No, I'm not even exactly. I remember when I went over to because I worked at both companies at the same time, but I remember when I started working on the X books with Bob Harris, and Bob Harris said, "You know what we use DC Comics for? To take the young guys, groom them." Get them to a certain level, and then once they become viable, we pay them more money and have them come work for us.
Just remember, don't be afraid to show the sausage. Todd Mulrooney, 2020.
How the sausage is made.
Was that? Sorry,
let's clarify. Does anybody else?
Poor Bob. You got to turn that mic on, brother.
Sorry, I said Chester edited that in his own little universe.
So do we have any more questions for Eben?
Yes.
Well, go for it, Chester.
I thought each person was going to get one. You don't want to go to Bob and Joe first?
I'm good, man. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Eben.
Yeah.
I do love the idea of it. I think it's really cool, dude. But softball or hardball? You choose.
Both.
Oh, both. Okay. Well, hardball will definitely cover both of them. You mentioned your Eisner winner, which of course is B. Clay Moore.
Yep.
And his Hawaiian Dick. Now, I find that to be extremely brave that you put him on your site. And I'm kind of curious why you made a decision to take that flag.
Well, it's actually less. It's only motivated by the material, quite honestly. So we got connected through a mutual, connection. The series that's on there is called Billy Smoke. It's a graphic novel that he and an artist named Eric Kim made for I want to say it was for Oni years ago and never got published. And so, as we started talking, it's like, I've got this series. It's never seen the light of day. It could work well in this format. He sent it to me. We liked it and decided to put it out. So it's really that simple.
It's not because of his Hawaiian dick.
Not because of his Hawaiian dick.
Well, no, I was talking more about the fact that 648 of his backers on Kickstarter have been stiffed by him.
Oh, honestly, I wasn't even aware of that. So
yeah, well, he's very controversial, dude, especially in this community, because we're all kind of getting behind the indie revival and through crowdfunding and the direct marketing type of thing. I love what you're doing, because that's another option and it's really cool.
Yeah.
But Clay Moore is a very hot topic, dude.
Yeah.
You go on that Kickstarter page, there's still comments just within the past few days.
Yeah.
People are very upset with that guy because he's literally just took their money and ran, dude.
Yeah, that's honestly news to me. We'll have to have a conversation about that.
Cool.
Evan's going to learn who to get in bed with and who not.
That's right. That was a softball question, by the way.
Okay, good.
Oh no!
Oh God! Somebody get a chamois for all the blood that's about to be spilled
I'm
here.
not afraid to talk about anything, so go for it.
I told you.
Yeah, dude, you have been absolutely forthcoming and awesome. I'm really happy to have met you, dude, and I wish you all the luck in the world. I think it's a great idea.
Thanks,
I think this is a really interesting platform, man. I'm glad you're sharing it with us.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
But the questions are not over yet.
Good. Bring on the questions.
The first one's easy. I was just curious, as a soon-to-be publisher myself, how do you anticipate handling the translation of these books into different languages?
Yeah, so that's a great puzzle. We've had a couple of meetings with people that do this around the world professionally. I think it is so. Number one, it is not Google Translate.
Good.
I want mine translated by Chester into cuneiform.
So yeah,
cuneiform, please, thank you.
It has to be human translation. Number one.
Good.
And number two, it has to be actually dialect specific as well. So it's not just
Good.
It's Spanish for the Mexican audience. It's Spanish for the actual Spanish audience. It's accounting for those variations. So, yeah, I mean, the conversations that we've had so far are looking at a couple of different options. The one that's the most appealing to me, and we've got a lot of legwork to do to get there, but the one that's most appealing to me is actually partnering with international publishers to do the translations for their market. And finding a deal that kind of cuts them in on that piece.
That's how Image Comics did it in the day.
Yeah.
Image Comics did the same thing, where they would partner with the different countries and have translations. I got a bunch of different translations of black and white from '94.
Really? Yeah. Well, if you do need any help with that or advice on something, I'm an actual philologist, so I can be helpful. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
And so a follow up to that would be, would the translation costs and then the foreign I'm not sure really how to put it, not so much distribution, but well, I'll just keep it simple. Would the translation cost be covered by the 50% of the revenue that goes to Macroverse?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's part of our expansion plan. Like, essentially, I mean, the more successful we can make it, the more we can do, obviously, right? So the more revenue we have coming in, the more we can expand, the more we can, build tools, the more we can do, all the stuff that we want to do. But yes, it's all designed where our piece of that pie is what builds the company.
Okay. And then my last question is for creators who would be interested in the Macroverse platform.
Yep.
What are the different things you're looking for in terms of adapting existing work versus the potential of signing creators to produce something specifically for Macroverse exclusively?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, the thing we're the most interested in is people that want to make something for Macroverse exclusively or first, and then I think that the model we think is potentially appealing to a lot of creators is you do it in Macroverse first. If you've noticed, our episode links are shorter than a traditional 22-page comic, so we encourage people to embrace that. It ends up, if you look at a comic's equivalent, it ends up being around 8 to 10 pages of art per episode. It's not quite a one-to-one if you're making it specifically for the platform, but it's in that ballpark. And so, what we're working with a bunch of people on is it's like put out an episode every, couple weeks as opposed to every month or every 6 weeks or whatever that cadence is. Build a kind of more consistent ongoing relationship with the audience that way, and then build it up to the point where you then do launch a Kickstarter off the back of it, or you do a printed, graphic novel edition. And because they're two different experiences, we think those are real additive as opposed to competitive. And so you can kind of use it to kind of build a business that way, and then still benefit from the print side of it, and still give people that collectible. And
if you bring exclusive content to Macroverse, is there a bigger percentage cut? Do you get any kind of perks because of the exclusivity?
At this point, no. So it's a one size fits all deal for us at the moment. So I mean, it's partly why we're real flexible with what that strategy is. It's really kind of tailored to each creator. So for some people, that's what they want to do, and it's what makes the most sense. And for other people, it's not what they want to do. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
We'll kind of go at it from either direction. I think there are some real benefits. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I think there are some real benefits to considering going, Macroverse first, but there are also benefits to it the other way. So, I mean, it really is a kind of creator by creator conversation. And in some cases, people are doing both. So, we've also got some people that have a backlog of stuff that we're working through adapting, and then they're bringing new stuff, to us first. So it's kind of all over the map in that regard. Did I actually answer the question? Sorry, I kind of got lost.
Yeah, you definitely did. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna start wrapping this up so we can let Eben go. I just want to say, everybody, this is the tip of the iceberg with Macroverse, man. I mean, he hasn't been going very long, I think, since October. Yeah. And I think the platform and the idea has a lot of promise, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. And you and I, Eben, we may be talking soon.
Okay, good.
Doing something together, because it sounds really fun. It sounds interesting. Like for me, after 35 years, actually longer in this industry, it just seems fresh to me. It seems interesting.
I agree.
Yeah. So
sorry,
it's
guys.
like the new best car. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
Let's get in it. I want to get in it.
I don't want to.
I want to ride.
I'll drive.
I'm not even touching it. I won't touch it, especially after all those sexual noises we heard from Eben. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't. You don't want to be touching.
I just heard get in it, and I won't touch it. I don't know.
Oh, no.
You know how everybody has to ruin everything for everybody? I remember I saw some show about the new car smell. Like everybody loves the new car smell. You get in the car and you're like, ooh, and you start sucking it in. You're like, oh, that new car smell. And then somebody, I remember they're like, that's toxic. And I'm like, you're toxic. The new car smell, screw you. Well, Eben, do you have a parting shot or anything for Pontificators?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I would say, and it's where we try to come from on everything, is we're just in love with the kind of creative process and people making stuff. And a big part of why we built this is because it didn't exist and we wanted it for ourselves. And so, now we hope that we can really empower a bunch of other people to, do the thing that they want to do and find the audience that they can find for it, and do it in a way that's kind of interesting and new, and hopefully kind of really leans into the advantages of what, a platform like any kind of digital platform has to offer, as opposed to fighting against the fact that it's not something that it was. And like you have said, it's not meant to be competitive or a replacement, but it is meant to be something kind of new and exciting and interesting. We're very open and interested in people's feedback. So if anybody listening or who comes across this later has thoughts or comments or ideas, reach out to us. I think a lot of what we think we've also seen from other platforms, but I think it's just good sense for any creator is to have a dialogue with the people that are engaging with their stuff, and we really treasure that and welcome it. So if you want to find out more about how to submit stuff, how to be in touch and talk about projects, you can hit us up at macroverse.media. You can also find us on Instagram and other places, either at Macroverse or at Macroverse Media around the web. And I am more than happy to kind of talk to anybody at this point. So feel free to reach out and be happy to continue the conversation in all those various ways.
Well, very good, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I do appreciate it. I think it is a good product. I can't wait to see where you're at a year from now. I mean, I have a feeling this thing is going to be busting out huge. And I'm really, I just get so excited. Like, I'm actually talking to a guy that's probably going to be changing the future. It's pretty cool, So more power to you. Best of luck, my friend. And thanks again. And I'm sure you and I will be hanging out more in the future.
Absolutely. Well, thanks all you guys, and have a great night and weekend and all of that good stuff. And on to more pontificating. I am now going to go figure out what movie I'm going to watch with my 7-year-old and 4-year-old. So
sweet.
All right, you guys, have a good night.
All right, brother.
Bye, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, let's get Zach back in here.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Hey, can you guys take over for a couple minutes? I have to
sure.
use the restroom. Yeah,
I got it.
Sure.
Whatever
Well,
subject you guys want to talk about, you guys want to cut loose. I know you guys were all in best behavior. I was very proud of you.
Thank you. Even me?
No, not you. Never. All right, I'll be right back.
All right. So tentacle porn. Now,
Oh, God.
So anyways,
are you going to break down the etymology of that phrase?
I could. But what is it we are pontificating today anyway, guys?
Why your eyebrows are starting to get that evil genius look. They're getting in that sort of that point. How'd that happen? You never looked like that before. Now they're getting to that.
He's just letting that little part at the top there grow out, and he's just curling it up.
Yes, it's the machinations. What am I to do? But I'm not. Pablo popped in. Finally, I woke him up. He wants part of the conversation.
So is it porn? What? Huh?
Right. Okay, Todd, let me see if I can fix it. Is that better?
I don't know. You look like the next version of Lex Luthor. Like you got
Sweet,
some
dude.
I was thinking more like Ming the Merciless.
Yes.
Oh, that's even better. He rules a universe. Yes.
He loses, right?
No, come on. That's all. That's just propaganda.
Propaganda.
That's fake news.
You should have heard chat. You should have heard them slamming Chester's hairline before we went live.
Why? What's wrong with my hair? It's not that bad.
While we have a decent audience watching, let's just give out who our guests will be next week.
Oh.
I don't know who our guests are going to be next week.
It's Graham Nolan.
Is it?
Ooh.
Yes.
Who's that, Todd?
Graham Nolan?
Yeah, who's that guy?
Doesn't he have a new book?
Bane with Chuck Dixon, right?
Doesn't he have a new book coming out?
Yes. Is it called? I don't know how to pronounce it. Chester, pronounce it.
The Chanu.
Chanu, is that it?
Yeah, Chanu.
No Chanu like Gary Chanu?
Is it like a Yeti?
Sinise.
Is that another version of a Yeti, Chester? A Chanu?
I don't know. I have to go look at the word.
Oh.
We stumped Chester.
We thought you were so smart.
We can end the stream right now. We're done. We're not going to get hired.
You can't throw something on me like that. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even see it. Where could I find find it?
Is it up right now?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is up. When does it close? It's got 20 days left. So good. He'll be in here while it's open.
I don't know. Let's say Chanu or Shinu.
Chanu.
You remember that? Remember that Rolling Stones song, Shinobi, Shatter, Shatter?
I do.
Shinobi, Shatter, Shatter. So, yeah, he actually he put a lot of pressure on me to promote his stuff a few days ago. So I guess here you go, Graham. $13,717, 223 backers. That's quite an undertaking. 20 days left. So is he 10 days into this now? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
It's usually 30-day campaign. So he's got a fixed of 15,000. So he's what, like 1,300, something like that, like 1,300 shy. So this is really cool. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we'll probably do that next week. But if you guys get a chance, check out Graham's Indiegogo. It looks pretty promising. And he's doing really good right now.
I really lost faith in Chester, though. I thought he would definitely know the etymology of this word. And
yeah, I don't believe it is a word, but you go on. It might be one of those mythical words.
Chester, it's a word. It was right there. We all saw it.
Yeah, it's a word now, Chester.
You just admit that you failed.
All right, fine. Shinu, Jeju, and Jenu, Shinu. It's a Native American mythology. It is a creature of the Indian origin. How's that?
There you go.
And
that's so hard. Really, seriously, you act like we were asking you to, crawl through 15 miles of broken glass.
The thing is, Chester, Bob knew it all along. He just wanted to see you sweat.
I know.
Always.
Yeah.
What is this, Xanadu? What?
Xanadu. Gary Gnu's.
Xanadu.
Without Gary Gnu's.
Olivia Newton-John.
I was going to
say,
I don't think it has anything to do with her.
So I figured,
she's a grandma now, Chester, right?
Dude, shut up. Don't you dare. I swear to God.
Yeah, if you guys
Did your inner booster just come out right there, Chester?
If you guys want to cut loose right now, let's cut loose, man. So do we have another subject, or are we just going to goof off for like the next 10 minutes or so?
Well, what now that he's not here and you don't feel tied up, like, what do you guys really think about it? Like, are you excited about it?
It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And like he said, it sounds like they're very much in the they're still working on the development of it and taking it where they want to go. It'll be like Art said, it'll be interesting to see where these guys are in a year.
One of my secret projects has been looking into something similar to what Macroverse is doing. So what I'm going to take from this, and I actually, once Art let us know that Eben was going to be a guest, I looked into Macroverse a little bit and listened to the podcast that Jason Brubaker did with them on their show. And I'm going to be definitely looking into it a little bit more. One of my secret projects has been to try to develop something similar to what they're already doing. So I don't know. I'm going to investigate it more and see if maybe they beat me to the punch, or if there's something that they're not doing that I think that there's still an opportunity there. So I'm very curious to see where they go from here.
My biggest problem, and we talk about it all the time on this show, and I'm going to keep going because I think we're all in agreement, advertising. Let's get an advertising budget and start advertising this stuff, because I mean, nothing against anybody who suggests this stuff, because it's the cheapest way, honestly, to do it is just like stuff that we're doing right now. It's kind of guerrilla marketing, take it to the people, stream and do this stuff. But I think what's really needed, because it's a small community, and we're talking, but we kind of talk within the same community. One of the things, like with Comicsgate and with Ethan, early on when I talked to these guys, it was like, try to set up your YouTube show that goes beyond comic books. So like Ethan had Star Wars, it's still kind of related, but not. And so I try to do Kiss Corner. So it's kind of related, but not, and try to bring people in, through those different those different channels and then bring them into, like bring new people into, what you're doing. And I believe that that's what it's going to take, because this industry I've been doing this for forever. What this industry does is it just relies on the industry to sell it. Yeah. They rely on each other to sell it and to market it and to push it. And I just believe that if companies like Macroverse or Marvel and DC really believe in their product, put your money where your mouth is and start advertising this stuff. Get it out there in a real significant way.
It's one of those things that I'm not so sure if smaller companies undervalue marketing or if it's that they simply don't have the marketing budget that they wish they had. But I agree that it is a critical component of business that often gets overlooked.
I think what happens is with new companies, okay, like your Macroverse, I'm just using them as an example. You use what's available to you because you don't have big money, right? So it then becomes organically guerrilla marketing or this type of stuff. And then this is the problem with it. If it's not built into the DNA, I was talking to Eben about this as well. These businesses have to have these things built in their DNA, otherwise they will fail. So all successful businesses have not just where they want to be right now, but where they want to be 10 years from now. You know what I mean? So they work and they create a business model that's not just going to take care of the here and now, but it's going to expand and grow. And so what I would like to see from some of these companies is just that they are thinking outside of just the guerrilla marketing, taking it to the people through Facebook and, the traditional channels of the internet, but that they start thinking beyond that. And if we could get to that place, then I think we can grow the industry. If we don't, then my fear is that in 10 years, Macroverse is going to be just anything else. You know what I mean? They'll still be pandering and they'll have maxed out the fan base and they'll be pandering to the same group of people that everybody else does. So the pie is never expanding. It's just getting a bigger chunk of the pie. And that's the problem that we're seeing. Nobody's making a new pie, meaning bring in more people.
Yeah. Well, James Dean Anderson over here, who had a lot to say about it, he says, Chester, I got the awful feeling that I, as a comic buyer, don't really matter to that platform based on what I enjoy buying. Bummer. Well, I don't know that that's true. I think I asked him some pretty lightning questions there. I wasn't, being soft with him whatsoever. And he didn't blink, dude. Mm-hmm. He answered straight up, and it sounded genuine to me. So I would say that, he's done what he can. Maybe he is more leaning toward that side of things that we kind of alluded to, but he's open to everything and he wants to be successful and he liked some of the ideas. I would give him a chance, to be honest, personally.
And also what happens is it's like it's your peer group. It's the group that you hang out with or the people that come to you. So he might not even have as big of a choice as you think he does. You know what I mean? Like he might not have access to what we're perceiving as not so much like superhero kind of comics. So that group of people that create those comic books might not have even embraced this stuff yet. You know what I mean? We don't know what is being brought to him and what is and isn't. We do know one thing is that he doesn't want to just kind of do a cliche. He doesn't want to do like, this is somebody's version of Spider-Man or this is somebody's version of Captain America. And I think that has merit. I think that has merit. We've seen that time and time again. So, maybe it will sell, maybe it won't, but it's just, it's his company and he can run it however he wants.
Sure.
But I do think that he is open to superhero stuff if it, isn't those things.
Yeah, but I think the other reason why he doesn't have things that are like, we know CG and I guarantee you he has no idea what CG is. I guarantee it. No, he doesn't. He doesn't know, because when I was talking to him earlier with Jason and stuff, he didn't know that there was like this big comic revival on Indiegogo of things going on. He just, he was that outsider looking in, and he saw that there were independent comics being made, but he didn't know that there's like a group and there's a reason behind it, and there's a whole bunch of things going on. You know, he doesn't understand. He didn't know that that was going on when I met him, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to get Art in to talk to him. I was really excited that Art, you were able to jump in, because I was like, if Art can, if you could talk to Art, and if Art is impressed with what you're doing, he could be your gateway to kind of like, you know, to meeting all these people that are doing these amazing projects that he has no idea that's going on, you know, because the only reason why he had that content on his stuff is because that's the stuff he was able to find when he was reaching out to people. Because, you know, he's mostly going through Kickstarter. He was not going through Indiegogo. He doesn't think of Indiegogo when he thinks of comics. He thinks of Kickstarter. So that's where, you know, he finds that stuff. And then when you brought up that one guy, he had no idea that guy had, you know, basically swindled people, you know, and I could, you know, just kind of hear him kind of like die on the inside a little bit, knowing that, you know, like, this might be something we have to talk about, you know, to this person, you know. So it's just like, good. Yeah, but it's just, I think that now that he's, you know, it's going to be our job to introduce him to the fact that there's a lot more people with a lot of really great, like, you imagine seeing, like Cyber Frog,
or Thibert and Throttle,
Thibert and
Black
Throttle,
and White, or
Black and White, exactly. Imagine seeing those, You know what I mean? Just imagine seeing those things. Like, most likely he doesn't have them because he just didn't know that there was all this stuff going on in this little corner. Not a lot of people know about us, you know?
Yeah.
I still have to, whenever I go and talk to people and they ask me what I do and I start talking about it, they have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I just wanted to say to him that, and everyone else who might be concerned, that the dude seems very open. And I love what he's doing. It's very professional. I think it's a good thing. I think we should support it and help him grow, because I doubt he would be adverse. It is a digital platform, right? I doubt he'd be diverse to dropping another 300 comics on top of the 70 he's got. It just adds value, right?
Yeah.
So I just to answer you know, Dean's question, I think he deserves a shot. He was very honest with us.
I've talked to him a little bit, and I think he's a straight shooter. I think he's doing this in earnest. He does see some of the problems, and this is why I wanted to get out in front of it, because there are some traditionalists or people that when you talk like this, they feel like they have to double down and they have to go, well, you know, you're trying to kill traditional comics, or you're trying to destroy, you know, retail outlets or these type of things. And I'm telling you, this kind of thinking is why we're in this trouble right now, because we all put our eggs in the Diamond distributor catalog, and we're like, if we can just get in the catalog, then everything's fine. Well, everything isn't fine. You got in the catalog, and so what? You know what I mean? Now the retailer has to sell your product. Well, if they have the same, you know, outlook, then it's going to do what it's going to do or not, you know. And it's just going to be a cycle of the same thing. And what we've seen right now, since the pandemic was basically the breaking point, is that we're seeing that the leadership within Diamond and Steve Jeppe they want business as usual. I'm convinced of that. I don't think Steve Jeppe wants change. I think he's saying what he has to make it seem that way. But I think he just wants collectible comics. He wants collectible comics that go into these small retail outlets, and that's what he wants, because all his focus seems to be in that collectible sphere. But that's not necessarily bad. That's one piece. That's one component. You know what I mean? That's not everything, because there might be people that just want to be casual comic book readers, and I think that's what that Macross or Macroverse will be. Is it's for the casual readers, the people that just have the phone, they have 10 minutes to kill, they're going to read their 8 pages and move on. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing.
And no, the cool thing is that most of the digital people are like, yeah, no, it's just digital. We don't want you to, you know, they kind of have like an adverse effect of like, we don't want you to buy physical But he's like, no, I want you, this could be a launching he even said it on this could be a launching platform for to build your audience, then to publish an actual book, a physical book. And
several times.
And that's really important. And there's actually a really good market for that sort of thing. And Jason did really well. He did Sithra on Webtoons. He built a really great audience. And then he went to go and do a almost $100,000 campaign selling these beautiful, huge Sithra books. You know what I mean? And he did multiple campaigns of that. He did I think it was like every 3 books that he would put out. He only did 3 books. Okay. So it was every book, every season he would do a Kickstarter at the end. And at the very end, he did one that was almost $100,000 with the whole entire collection. Nice. And he found his audience, and most of his audience came from Webtoons, from a digital format, and then became physical comic readers from that. So it's just like, and he wants to bring people into like basically almost like a social media of comics, where it's like, oh, I love this person. What do they do? Oh, here's their social media. Here's their stuff. And and then you go and find other people, and then here's their social media, and here's their stuff. There's this things they're working on.
Zach, it's kind of what Comicsgate is doing. Well, Comicsgate is doing it through YouTube platforms. So YouTube is like the gateway. So you're selling yourself, you're selling your personality. You're trying to be entertaining. You establish a following, and then you say, oh, by the way, I have this book. Will you support me? And so I think it's fundamentally the same idea, But
the only difference I would say is that YouTube is very difficult to find other people unless that person in the video says, oh, hey, by the way, other people that are like me, go check them out.
That's why I was saying Comicsgate, because Comicsgate is a network. It's a network, that kind of promotes each other's platforms and things like that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, with a having a whole entire platform built in that is meant for basically showing off creators. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would be a huge amount of cool potential.
Yeah. Once again, not an either or.
Not either or. Yeah, just the possibilities are exciting.
Oh yeah,
and the potential is I think what's making it is the most exciting thing about it.
Yes,
it is. And another thing, one of the things one of the mistakes Marvel made was they made a decision that they wanted to go after a new audience, and they went full bore at it, which good enough. But they went at it in the old fashioned way. What he's doing is going after the young audience in the way they understand, which is digital, which is through these smartphones. So he might actually he could potentially be successful to get that market that Marvel was chasing, and they just didn't go at it the right way. He could get that market with that. It's possible.
What Marvel did is they created an either or scenario. Like they really tried to say like, well, we're going to double down on the agenda comics at the cost of your traditional, Marvel buying, fan. And that I think became the problem, and also shows you that they didn't have any real faith in it to begin with. When you create Safe Space and Snowflake and whatever, that bullshit is, they did it under the banner of New Warriors. They didn't just go, this is a book called Snowflake and Safe Space. They didn't have even the confidence to launch it as its own book. They tried to piggyback it on another IP that was successful, and they knew it was going to piss off, the more traditional fan of New Warriors. They knew that. They had to have known that, but they did it anyways. And that I think is kind of a difference as well. That's why I'm trying to try not to create an either or. Like, it doesn't have to be this or this. You can have your agenda comic books, but just double down on that. Make it a good agenda book. Sell it to that group of people, and if it works and they back it and they support it, then it exists, right? That's fine. But if there's somebody who wants to just read Thor, like traditional Thor stories, don't mess with those guys. Like, let them have their books.
It's like I've been touting this idea of R&D, and each publisher should have one of these, whether it's something like what he's doing or something like Webtoons or whatever. You know what? I really love to see how many comics that were new, right? That they could prove out and say, hey, we want to give you these, this person and this, we're going to make this character a highlight, but we're going to do it here first. How many people or how many of their comics would actually be prove out to go, okay, this deserves to be in print? Because I don't think, obviously we know Safe Space and Snowflake wouldn't be, but I don't think half of what they do would be. You know what I mean? And I know you mentioned Invincible, and Ryan Otley is on Invincible was great. It was absolutely brilliant. But I don't think his stuff really works that well with Spider-Man. His style and his.
Oh my God! I haven't read the books, but I've just seen the stuff he's been posting on Instagram. Oh, I love it.
It's almost like they made him dumb his stuff down.
Yeah.
To me, it seems almost like they made him dumb his stuff down. Like they have that particular kind of style that they're pushing over there.
Yeah.
And it's like they told him, listen, you don't got to do what you were doing over on an Image on Invincible. You know, break it down, make it more. It's like he's just. It's almost like this stuff is the stuff he's doing over there is incomplete.
Maybe it's the rate because he has to be monthly.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it's because he wasn't monthly, by the way, on Invincible. So maybe monthly
it's surviving the deadline. Yeah, it's like taking little shortcuts so you can make a schedule, and that's inevitable, and that happens to most anybody that's on a monthly. To somebody who has such a pretty detailed style like he does,
look, it's not the figure that I don't. It's the costume. His little curls in Spider-Man's costume are too. They're not right. There's something.
That's why I think that they're and it to me it doesn't feel like his work. Right. That's why and like I said, they're talking the reason why they hire all those artists from Brazil and stuff is because they have talent managers down there who tell them to draw like that. Like those guys, a lot of those guys work for come out of Ed Bennis' studio, and they all draw like Ed, and Ed's got a super detailed style. But they tell those guys, no, dumb that stuff down. You don't need that, and that's the kind of thing that they're kind of pushing over there for the large majority. So it's very possible that they're telling him like, listen, dude, you don't have to do all that stuff. This is good enough.
I don't think it's happening. I don't think somebody who's hiring you is ever going to say dumb it down. We'll pay you the same amount of money for less work. I think it's probably more just survival. Just they realize to keep a schedule, they're going to have to, something's going to have to give a little bit so they can make the schedule and get the book done on time. I don't know. I don't want to seem like I'm pooping on your point, Bob, but I think it's probably more of that. Just the reality of getting things done.
Yeah. Well, the reason why the only reason I threw it out there is because I do know that I've actually talked to some of those guys and they told them, it's like, yeah, you guys don't have to draw like that.
Really?
Yes.
An editor told an artist that at Marvel?
From what I understand, they have a person who's like a point of contact down there, and
in Brazil,
and they've actually told them, and it's like, listen, this is kind of the style that's going on over here. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this super detailed work because a lot of those guys can do that work. They just don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were just saying like all Marvel artists,
No.
Editors are telling them this.
Well, since you guys are on art, and we were doing the Macroverse thing, what did you guys think of the art coming in those? We've got a bunch of comics on there.
Some of it was interesting. Some of it was interesting. I kind of like the one that I kind of gravitated to was the little cartoony, almost like a Scotty Young kind of thing with the jokey fantasy one that was down there.
Oh yeah, that was the what is it? Let me check it here. Yeah, that was cute.
Side quest.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Side quest.
That kind of gave me a little bit of I don't know if you guys ever read that book. I Hate Fairyland.
Mm-hmm.
Or Dork Tower.
Yeah, it kind of gave me that kind of a vibe, and I was like, that's kind of cute. That's kind of cool. And then there was
Remind too. I think Remind is a good mainstay. I was a fan of Jason Brubaker's stuff, way back when he was first starting to crowdfund on Kickstarter. He was actually kind of the Kickstarter guru or the crowdfund guru at the time. So I remember seeing all his videos and kind of taking notes. So I like mine.
I thought that Dead Town looked interesting. I downloaded the app. I haven't gone through any of the books yet. I'm gonna take this weekend and try and get through as many as I can and get a feel for what their catalog is at this point.
How about you, Zach? What stood out for you?
I got it for Jason's Remind because I've never read it before, so that's what I gravitated towards, and I haven't had a ton of time to read lately, but no, I was just excited because he's not specific. He said that these are just the projects that basically they were able to get on, and I'm looking at the potential, and I'm thinking about like Golma, being on this thing and having this sort of incredible cinematic experience and stuff. And I'm trying not to think of it as like, these are the types of projects he wants, because they're not. They're just the ones that they could get at the time, and these are the ones that they've formatted now. And I can't wait to see what happens with the next 70 that they're about to post. Mm-hmm. And because most likely all that's going to change, there's going to be a huge dynamic diversity of styles and content.
I think Goma would really lend itself, because you were showing some of your layouts, how like the panels just kind of melt into the other one and stuff like that. I think that would be a cool visual experience, that you could actually have it physically pan down as, you click it and you can see it all pan down to where you want it, where you want the viewer to see these specific places on the page. I think it would lend itself very well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that that there is no gatekeeping that comes into it as far as content, stuff like that, because that's my biggest worry.
From what I mean, like Chester said, he was like Chester dropped some pretty hard questions on me. He just plowed through them like a champ. So I don't get that feeling from him. But then again, he's not the only one who's in charge.
Yeah, that's only 50% of the decisions being made by him, and he's the more creative one.
Yeah. So purely from just what we've learned from him, what little bit, and obviously this is just the first time we've ever talked to him. Mm-hmm. But just what we got from him. Yeah, I liked him. I really did. And just going from what little bit we have learned, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Never say never, man.
Yep. So
you never know, but I think he's open to it. I think he just a little doesn't want the cliche superhero stuff. He just doesn't want it to feel like they're trying to be a little Marvel or a little DC. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're creating your own business. You have your own, mission statement, things that you're looking for. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Also, I think gatekeeping is a term that gets thrown around a lot on the internet. And it's just like profiling. It happens, man. I mean, if you create a business, you're going to keep. There's certain criteria that you're looking for, and that's it.
But you know what I mean? Like the specific gatekeeping that we're afraid of, which is I just
want to clarify. I just wanted to clarify. What the term, because I know that there's been a couple YouTubers that have gotten themselves into trouble when they say I'm not a gatekeeper, and the thing is, you kind of are,
and there's a difference between gatekeeping and having standards.
Right. Exactly. I think it is like gatekeeping kind of is standards, like that's how some people look at it, is like, well, that's how the person that's getting the label of gatekeeping should look at it. It's like, it's my standards, but then the cynical or the, internet that people come after you say, it's gatekeeping. But I think it's just like when they say, well, a cop racially profiles or profiles, it's like, well, no shit, he profiles. Everybody profiles. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that they're looking after, looking for a certain type.
There's justified profiling, and then there's bullshit profiling.
Well, yeah, if you take action on it, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just profiling, but then going after somebody based on something, then that
Ooh, we're talking about profiling. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
My favorite conversation.
Down because we end up going on these tangents. But that's just the way I look at it is like you can get into trouble sometimes when you say I'm not a gatekeeper. But I think, in essence, like what you said, Bob, it's standards, but they kind of misconstrued the two, like gatekeeping standards. And I think businesses should have their standards, or as a more crude term,
that's how you get quality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or different or uniqueness. You know what I mean? Like you're able to hire a certain clientele, or you're looking at a certain type of business model that you want. And if you have to like check off diversity boxes, or you have to not, for the lack of a better term, gatekeep, or you don't have your standards, then it just becomes a mishmash. And then it's not original, or it's not unique, or it's not, it's not your vision anymore. It just becomes whatever it's going to be. And I think some businesses can be run that way, but I don't think, others can. So, once again, everything doesn't fall into one category.
Although I think, and he sounded like he'd be open to it. And I fair enough, James. I hear you, dude. I get your point.
Is this point here?
Yeah, I get it. But that's not what I'm addressing. I just, I get it. But like, for instance, what if he got a hold of, like, say, Benny, and he talked to him, and they took the White Widow and threw that into the Macroverse format? That would bring a lot of people in, and that would make him money, right? I mean, so being really hardcore about, no, I don't want anything that's just another person's Spider-Man. White Widow, perfect example. Maybe he should be a little more open-minded to that, but he sounded very open-minded, actually. But I mean, something like that would get him a lot of push, especially in the digital realm. Something like White Widow or Witchblade or any of those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm. But I think what he's looking at is he's looking at something that is like completely unoriginal. You know what I mean? Like something that is clearly and blatantly, like aspiring to be the Marvel universe or the DC universe or whatever it is. So I do know what he's talking about. I don't think he's opposed to superhero concepts or superhero ideas.
He just wants something completely unique.
Right. Yeah, but you have to dangle the steak to get the kid to eat the peas, right?
You gotta remember, Chester, that when we started reading comics and we started reading superheroes, they already had a lot behind them. It's really hard. Everyone tries to do a superhero universe, and it's really
dude. I'm not saying that he has to do superheroes at all. I'm just saying I'm giving examples of very successful online books like Witchblade and White Widow that if he got a hold of, even though they're rather generic, it would give a big boost to him, therefore bringing more people in, therefore more people are seeing these little things he wants to sell that they don't know about, maybe expanding their minds and making them better humans.
I guarantee you that if Mark Silvestri went to him and said, "Hey, can we adapt Witchblade?" He would do it. I guarantee. I'm not, and that's not what he's saying though. What he's saying is, I don't want a bunch of copycats. I don't want a bunch of the same thing, especially since it's the same thing that's currently destroying everything else we love, And he doesn't want that. He wants the real deal. I guarantee that if Marvel said, "Hey, we want to use your platform," and if they could negotiate terms, he would host Marvel stuff, in the same way like Netflix would have Marvel movies. You know what I mean?
Of course he would, because he's not opposed to Marvel and DC. He's opposed to anybody who wants to clone those characters.
Exactly, and that's what he is. He doesn't want copycats. So and from that, I totally agree. I don't want copycats either.
Yeah, if you're going to plop down money, you want them to feel fresh and original. Yeah. And as a creative person like myself, like I don't want to necessarily recreate Spider-Man. I love those comics, but to be honest, I don't even know if I would have it in me to try to do that. You know what I mean? Like I have this part like that goes, Steve Ditko, Stan Lee. How could I possibly top that? it's a lose-lose scenario. Why would I even, me personally, why would I even want to try that? You know?
Well, I'll write him. I'll write Eben a story. I'll call it Jezebel and Tiptoeing Through the Paisley. He'll love it.
You guys really got down when he's at Paisley. I even I was like, "What, Superman Paisley shirt?"
Yeah, he's gonna be like, "I'm never coming on that show again."
Yeah,
probably not.
That Cornelius guy was a dick.
Yeah,
I was not. I was very polite.
Bob was
and
cool,
nice,
but that guy sucked.
Yeah.
All right.
You know,
Zach ditched me. He's the only guy I knew other than Art, and he ditched me.
I think I was quite respectful, wasn't I?
No, I said
No,
it.
yeah, you're fine.
All of you guys, we were all on our best behavior. I thought we were very, very accommodating.
Yeah.
I almost feel like a proud parent. Like, you guys did good your first day in school.
Oh,
Daddy said we're award winners.
Yay!
You did good, kid. Here's your gold star.
Yay! Oh god.
But I think you know, if someone said something about your boy Zach, if he were to bring, you know, Jawbreakers, I'm guarantee that he'd probably get on it.
Yeah,
you know,
because it's original.
Yeah, it's an original. It's really cool, and it's hyper. You know, it's electric. It's got a lot of really excitement to it and stuff, and well, you know, and so it's just like
characters.
Huh?
Name all the characters in Jawbreakers.
None. I can name none.
Knife hand.
Forgettable.
Silkworm.
It's all forgettable.
Yeah, screw you, Todd.
I'm just saying that's the
Knife
problem we
hand.
have. That's the problem we have. We're trying to sell a book. The characters aren't ingrained.
King Kong, Todd. Anyway, I get you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tucker. I do apologize.
No, I know most of the characters.
Sure.
There's Devil
I
Dog.
got it right behind me.
I mean, and no, I get your point though. I mean, it's you know, if it's not long established and it has like a massive history behind it, it's going to be a little more difficult to push.
Yeah, you can hardly compare that to, you know, like the A-Team or G.I. Joe or whatever. You know, those have decades and decades of branding behind them. But let's just be hypothetical. Let's say in 20 years, if, you know, he's still putting those books out and then has some kind of mainstream success with it, who knows? That could be, you know, a household name, and it could, you know, be one of those kind of industry standards. You never know.
And it kind of reminds me of the early days of personal computing when you had Microsoft, you had Apple, you had Xerox, and, you know, back then the average person could not have dreamed of having a personal computer. And, you know, 20 years later, they were very popular. And now, who could dream of not having one, even if it's one that you carry in your pocket and you call it a phone? It's a computer.
And you know, a good point to add to what Joe's saying, and Aaron Olson is just breaking my heart over here in the chat. But if you actually use the app, which I did, and the way it works when you're touching it, it feels cool. It's very interactive. You kind of have to use it to understand what he was trying to say, because, you know, we've seen motion comics, we've seen, like I said, the Marvel app where it goes from panel to panel, and it's pretty cool. But this thing, you're interacting when you're touching with it. It does stuff. It moves you through the story. It's pretty cool, dude. I liked it. So I mean, it's you just go try it. It's free. I downloaded it. It's an easy thing to do, but you should try it out.
Yeah, it's $5. Like you can't go wrong.
It's free.
Yeah.
You can try it out for free.
Yeah.
You get a 7-day free trial. Yeah.
7-day free trial. Yeah.
You brought up the Zach point, right? And Zach's a new creator, challenging, sort of going in the space where he wants to challenge what he deems as garbage comics. So he goes into that space, creates some characters, creates some comics, but he's marketing himself, right? He's never made a post and go, hey, look at Sentinel, and he's the greatest this or that, the other thing. He's marketing himself, his team, his book, his campaign. And I'm not saying it's a flaw, because I'm not sure, because there is one guy there is one guy who's marketing Dominion, and he keeps doing these concepts. He's telling you who the character is, and the post is about that. So it's something to look at. You know, it's something to understand. Like, are we failing in one way? Are we not? You know, I know it's about marketing yourself. I get that.
Right.
In your talent.
But just to answer your question, Todd, like there's somebody named Walt Disney. Like the brand would almost surpass, you know, the product. You know, so you can build something on a like a brand, like a person, and build it off of a character as well. You know, if you have both, then you know there's your synergy and there's your successful template. So you know, no one knew who Chuck Jones was, but the Looney Tunes people knew who they were. They knew the characters. No one really knew, you know, most of the Disney stuff, but they knew Disney. You know, so there's a way of doing it both ways. So I think that it just depends on how you do it. Like I think Stan Lee was probably everything to Marvel in the early days. You know, he was that figurehead. He got out in front. He went into the, you know, and he broke down those barriers from this little niche to like mainstream, you know, and he talked directly to people and he sold a universe. So I think that there's multiple ways of doing these things and neither one of them are right or wrong.
No, I agree. I don't think there is. I've actually purposely taken Ignition, which is close to me. I was always propping the book and the characters up. Florida Man, I'm just propping the book up, me and the other people I associated, you know, creating that book with. And so it's, you know, it's a duality of let's see how it goes. For me, I'm like, hey, I'll see how it goes eventually. I'll have enough information to know which one works better or which one. They both have merits, basically, but how to balance it. Because I don't think anyone can name any of the Florida Man characters. You know what I mean? I don't think
what is the name of the Florida Man? What is the actual
Man?
Yeah, well, what is his name?
Gary Dubba.
Gary Goldman.
Gary Dubba and Floyd.
But I think they both can work, and I think it's possible that even possible that you could do both at the same time.
Oh, obviously, this is all like we're all treading in a new water too. Just like we were talking to him, and this is a new platform. We're also doing that. Not that there hasn't been people before us, because they obviously have. They've paved the way for us. But it's still when you're the machine behind you, it's all new to you. You know, when you realize you've sent your book to the printer and the printer hasn't delivered it, now you're handling that. Now you're on the phone going, what do you mean? What's going on? What's the problem? Well, we had a problem or we lost an employee. That's all new. So you got to become the whole machine, which means the marketing and logistics behind every project that you do. It's tricky.
It's tricky.
Yeah. And then these guys being the helpful hand in it, they might this might be a more attractive option for some people.
Yeah, people that possibly are more like hiding behind their character or their IP, or more artists, writers that don't really get into self-promotion. So if this is a big platform, then they can let the product speak for itself. And that's how I always thought it was done. I always thought, you know, my work should speak for itself. And it took a long time for me to realize, I think it was mostly Comicsgate, hanging out with, you know, Ethan and seeing how this whole Comicsgate thing works, that you realize that the personality behind these IPs is very, very important, because it's not like a corporate character like Bugs Bunny or Spider-Man or Superman. These are characters that we've created. So it's almost inseparable, like who we are and what our IPs are. You know what I mean? They go hand in hand. And your IP and your creation is only going to exist as long as you promote it, as long as you are involved, because nobody's going to believe in it the same way. Nobody's going to care the same way. You have to prove to people that you're worthy. You have to prove to people that your book is important. You have to prove that to people. And then you have to get them to the point where they believe, but then they're going to make the next step and they're going to buy your product and so on and so forth. That's why I think like what we're doing with Comicsgate is people say, oh, is it sustainable? It is sustainable because we're going directly to people. There's people in the chat right now. Like if we do our job right and people like us, then no matter what I do outside of anything, in 10 years, whatever, hopefully those people are all going to follow me over, to these different projects and these different things that I'm going to do. So I do think that it's almost where I'm at right now is doing good work is really important because that's how you sustain, that's how you keep people. But selling and marketing, it's the number one thing, getting out in front of people and showing them that you're a good guy and that you're talented. And that's why on my YouTube channel, I want to draw a lot and I want to show them that, I am an artist and I am working and I'm doing those things, but I'm also entertaining, you know what I mean? So that they can always understand the two. Like I'm not just a propped up guy that's going to crack jokes.
You're entertaining?
I can be.
Was that a slight, sir?
Well, you were mentioning, or somebody was mentioning Stan Lee earlier, and I don't know how many people know this, but in the 60s and even into the 70s, Stan would go to newsstands, he would go to schools, and he would go to universities, and he would ask kids and then eventually college students, he would ask them what they were interested in, and he would listen to what they had to say, and then he would take that back to the Marvel bullpen. And if they weren't already doing it, he would assign somebody to do whatever it was that they were telling him they wanted. So in a way, I look at not what Marvel is today, but I look at what Marvel became in the 80s and 90s with having that sort of interest and commitment that Stan and some other people at Marvel had to giving the readers what they wanted. And I think what we've been doing the last couple of years and what we intend to keep doing is more or less the same type of thing that he was doing back then. And not everybody is going to get that same level of success, obviously, but we've seen the model proved out that we can reach a smaller amount of people, and if we're communicating our ideas to the people that are interested in those types of ideas, we're going to get way more out of the exchange than we would if we were sitting in some corporate office and just trying to guess at what these people wanted, because that's what Marvel and DC have been doing for who knows how many years now. They're just throwing darts at a board and hoping that they get a hit. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they're not actually asking people what it is they want.
I think what we're doing, right, like you said, there's many people that have been doing this for a while. I think we're finding our way, and we haven't found our best way yet. Because I still think there's our best way.
I think some individuals have found their best way, but I think as maybe a collective, which that's another whole subject to get into, like what's our responsibility to each other. I know there's a lot of this talk going on right now. Maybe we'll do a whole show on this, next week, on what everybody's responsibility is, because I'm sure we all have different points of view on that. But I do believe that there are a lot of people that have figured it out, and then there are people that are still figuring it out, and that we still have plenty of room for growth and potential. So yeah, I think it's all the above.
Yeah, and I also think with
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to just add to that is I think really it's two basic camps when we're coming to that conversation, Art. And you're right, we should do a whole show on it because I think you have the two camps are this. You have one camp which believes we all should work together to help each other. And another camp is, well, we can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. There's only a limited amount of money. So you stay over there and be quiet. And we over here will make some money. That's the two camps that I see. You know, I don't really, you know, I can give my opinion on which one I think is right, but yeah, maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, but it's like we were talking about earlier about gatekeeping and standards and stuff like that, and what your responsibility is to, you know, your fellow creator in Comicsgate. But the reason I want to sum this up, but I'm not going to. Is I think that what is happening is that people, by and large, are sharing platforms and giving you know, everybody a shot as much as they can within reason, because there is a little bit of competition, and there also is a little bit of like, well, how much, you know, like we had Graham Nolan, like how much attention do I give Graham Nolan on this? You know, I have you know, a crowdfund as well. Zach has one. Todd's going to be launching one. You know what I mean? Is it fair to them if we give too much time to Graham Nolan? You know what I mean? I'm not saying we don't. I'm just this is just a devil's advocate kind of thing I'm throwing out there.
That's why I think you need a place within our. We're talking about our community specifically. We're not talking about Marvel. We're not talking about Macroverse. We're talking about our community. Now, what we need is a place that does kind of what my channel does, and it doesn't have to be me. Someone smarter, better than me. But you need that kind of place where there is that person isn't really involved in the money making. They're just an observer, an editor, as it were. You need that kind of voice, because they can bring everybody on and share everybody and try to build up everybody, because there is no competition from that point of view. And that's why I can do that. And like I said, I'm not saying it should be me. I'm just saying you need someone like that. That can be put in that position, held up by everybody, and therefore that's the place you go, and it becomes a center place. I know we were pushing Pixel Trader.
You always do this to me, Chester.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's like the third hour, and then we start getting to like, oh my gosh, I just want to engage in what you're saying.
Table it for the next one, man.
And I know where you don't want to go, because there's this like litmus test, right? And you got to pass the litmus test. But this is comics. I think the worst thing that happened was it became a movement about personalities and went away from being a movement about consumers.
You gotta save this, man. You are pushing every darn button, and we're already like pushing the third hour.
All right.
Here.
We'll wrap it up then. Go ahead, wrap it up, Art. We'll talk about another day.
Wrap it up. Bob wants to go. We should like Bob actually close the show. We should give him responsibility.
He's been drinking. I don't know if I trust him.
Well, I think he would have closed this down at the second.
Oh man, dude, you give me a time you want this in, and I'll shut this shit down like
hard. We may want to put Bob in charge. Yeah, Bob will just. You remember that big old thing in vaudeville, the hook, and they just pull you off stage.
I just walk up behind you, hit you with a sock full of quarters.
Bob's superhero name, the Timekeeper.
The Timekeeper, or a hero name or villain name, sock full of quarters. Sock full of quarters.
Sock full of something.
I thought it was always pennies, though. Like quarters, that's
pennies are for poor people and weak people.
I think in the modern time, it's bike locks.
There you go.
No, I don't use bike locks because I ain't a bitch.
You could do some.
Joe is so disappointed. Oh.
Remember when they had a chain? Man, you could do some damage with a bike chain too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are designed as weapons. Street weapon. Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much, man. All my pontificated brothers. I had a ball. I think we are freaking nailing these shows. I just wish Friday was a little kinder to us. There's a lot of competition, man. But I think we're putting good shows together, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks to our guest. And thanks for coming on. Go check out. Is it Macroverse? And
Macroverse.
We also had a great chat. The chat,
we did
really great.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we have some, YouTube singer stars in here too, so it's good.
Who's the singer star? Who's the singer star?
I don't know.
It's James.
I've been drinking, man.
Well, I did say James, but you didn't agree with me.
Yes, it's James. He's a great singer.
I hate Todd. I'm gonna punish him as soon as we check out of here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you guys, everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome, and thank you for the super chats. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Piss off.